Welcome to GenXadulting, and today we have John Kotrides, also known as GenXJono on social media with us. Welcome, John.
Welcome. I'm happy to be here.
We're so happy to have you here. And our first question is always, what year were you born?
1970.
So you are Gen X.
Definitely Gen X. I'm right in the middle, the heart of Gen X.
We're 71, so we
Yep.
feel the same way. We feel like we experienced it all, every Gen
There,
X moment.
there are three levels they say to Gen X or the babies, which are like 76 to 80. There's the OGs, the 65 to 69. We're right in the heart of it. 1 foot in digital, 1 foot in analog, and something to say about all of it.
It's so true. And where were you born?
I was born in Rochester, New York.
Okay. And do you know how far back your family goes there? Was it your grandparents, your great grandparents? Like, how did
Now,
you
my
guys
parents
end?
immigrated to the States from Greece in 1965.
Okay. And did they land in Rochester? Is that where they settled?
My dad's flew to Worcester, Massachusetts at first because back in those days you needed to be sponsored. So the Greek Orthodox Church there sponsored him and said, hey, we'll be responsible for him being a good civic citizen. He worked for about 6 months studying, learning the language, going through whatever the church had him go through to help. Then moved to New York City, worked another 6 months, and got enough money to bring my mother over. They were married a year before they could be here together. And so they settled in New York City for about a year before moving to Rochester, because at that point in time, my oldest brother was going to be born soon, and my mother didn't want to live in New York. It was just too big a city for her.
So they were married in Greece before your dad came over. Do you
Yes.
know why he came over here?
So if you look at the depression that the United States went through, in the 30s, Greece was going through that straight through the 60s. Just no jobs. Everyone in, a lot of Europe at that point in time saw opportunity here in the States. And at that point in time, there was a big push for immigration and there was things for, them to do that gave them opportunity. And so they came over and honestly, just for a better life for themselves and for their kids someday.
I assume they have a lot of family that they left behind. So that had to have been really hard, especially for their parents to see
Yep.
them
We
go.
spent every summer when I was a kid, either my mom would go with one of my brothers or my dad would go with me or two of us. There'd be different groups going every summer back, And we had a Greek diner. We had a diner in the small town that I grew up in outside of Rochester. So we always joked that that was our fourth sibling. Someone stayed home with the restaurant every time. But we would go back and forth to Greece a lot.
That's wonderful. Okay, so they settle in Rochester. You said you have an older brother. Is there more siblings besides him?
Three of us, three boys. I'm the middle.
Okay, and what's the spacing?
4 years, 4 years, 4 years.
And was your mom a stay-at-home mom?
So again, we owned a diner. So I mean, yes, in the sense that we grew up in the diner. I mean, we spent more time at the restaurant as kids than we ever did the house. That's where we had dinner. That's where we ate. As soon as I could reach over the counter, they put us to work. The reason so many Greek restaurants are known as family restaurants is because that's who's working.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's what your dad did. So your parents owned the Greek
Yeah.
diner. And so did you have the Latchkey Kid experience?
Yeah, no one was home. The diner opened at 5 in the morning and went till 10 at night on Fridays and Saturdays. It was open 24 hours. We'd get home from school and we were on our own. Mom was at the restaurant, dad was at the restaurant. So Rochester, about 40 miles east of Rochester, was a small town known as Wolcott, New York. Wolcott. And that's where we grew up. When I was young, my parents moved there because a restaurant was available. And that was the primary everything. Everything was centered around the restaurant. We got home, no one was home. We'd make ourselves something to eat. We'd clean the house. We'd play outside with our friends. We'd run the mile to the restaurant, grab a quick bite there, maybe, then leave again. We were on our own. I remember friends peeling off one by one as their mothers called time for dinner, and we were the urchins that were still outside. There was no dinner time. We ran to the restaurant whenever we were hungry.
And so I assume as it got close to bedtime though, your mom would at least leave the restaurant and get you guys settled in.
Yeah, she'd usually be home by like 5 or 6, I guess. My dad would
Okay.
show up around 8 or 9. But we didn't really have a bedtime. it was very unstructured, and we learned to be invisible very quickly because number one, my mom was in love with shows like Dallas and Dynasty and Knots Landing and showing her the life that she thought America represented. She said when she got here, she thought everyone was rich, and she was very quickly removed of that opinion. But those shows came on in the 80s, and she's like, that's what I envisioned. But you got to understand the language, the vernacular, the pop culture references, she didn't quite get them. So at 8 years old, at 10 years old, I had to watch Who Shot JR with her so that we could translate. I knew at 10 years old that JR was sleeping with Kristen, that he was intentionally getting Sue Ellen drunk to throw her in the sanitarium. I had it down cold.
That's awesome. I remember that like it was yesterday.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What drama back then, right?
But
dude, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was. Do you remember there was the like Who Shot JR shirts, buttons? Remember buttons was big.
So
right?
I've done a lot. I did a deep dive into it not too long ago, and part of what did that was unintentional. There was a major writer strike that meant that lasted 3 months longer than it should have. That extended that whole cliffhanger. Just like so much in our lives, we didn't get what we wanted whenever we wanted it. We got it when it became available. Yes. That's the difference.
100%. And that's such a great example of that.
Yeah.
That's a great, but I just thinking about you with an immigrant parent who, I assume she understood enough English to run a diner, but you're saying as far as what was going on in pop culture.
Yeah, so I mean, some of the pop culture references. Think about like a word like I use, sanitarium. That Sue Ellen was constantly going to the sanitarium because of her, what now would be understood as an illness. Back then, she was just a sloppy drunk. That's the way the 80s worked. Yeah. So my mom understood sloppy drunk, maybe not so much sanitarium. That's where the help came in.
Okay, so you're there with your mom. Did your brothers help too? Was it like
it was a family affair. We were good.
I'm sure you got to stay up. That came on at like 9 or 10.
As long as we didn't fight, we were up till 11 o'clock every night.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, because I didn't get to stay up and watch. What was on at 10? Was it Dynasty or?
Dynasty was 10 o'clock on Wednesdays. Dallas came on at 9. They pivoted it. And then Knots Landing would be right after, which then got moved to Thursdays, and then Falcon Crest came on. I'm telling you, for a kid that was outside as often as I was, as soon as it was 6, 7 o'clock, streetlights are on, TV. Yeah. So much television.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, and back then you got a huge number of episodes. I think it would be like, 40 episodes or something?
25 to 30 episodes a season. And you got to remember, they were still filming as we were watching. They weren't done yet.
Yeah.
Whereas now they wait until the entire season is filmed and then they release it all at once. 8 episodes. The 80s was all about the mini series, and now I feel like everything is a mini series.
100%. And then the excitement was in the summer you'd get to watch reruns, and then
so Knight Rider would maybe be up against Dukes of Hazzard. So you had to make this Sophie's choice about what you were going to watch. And so the summer was a chance to get some of that back. So now I'm going to pivot and watch Knight Rider instead, or A-Team, or, whatever it was. Let's be honest, even when VCRs came along, I don't know about you, we used them to watch movies. We rarely had it set to record so that we could watch one thing while taping another. We didn't do that.
Yeah, same. No, it was more to watch movies. Unless there was like some major thing. Like I remember recording Live Aid.
Yeah, but you were watching it at the same time.
I was watching it as I was recording it because I wanted to remember it, right?
Yeah, we did it for posterity, not to see what else was on.
Absolutely. I never thought about that reruns gave us a chance to watch the shows we didn't get to watch during the regular season. You're so right about that. And then there was always this anticipation of the fall and the new season.
Oh. The shows that would come on, the specials to give you, especially Saturday morning cartoons. When they do the Saturday morning cartoon preview, it was either the best thing ever or the worst thing ever. Because there were, we all talk about Saturday morning cartoons. I've talked about it a lot, and we really do give it its due. But every once in a while, there was a really bad slot of cartoons.
Yeah.
When I call it the cereal years, where everything was like it was the Pac-Man cartoon or it wasn't, it was just selling to us. Then it was kind of rough.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Okay, so you guys are like, you're out doing the Latchkey Feral thing, and then in doing just the typical Gen X, watching all the shows, watching all the pop culture. You're going to bed late. Were you guys tired for school? Because you're having to get up early.
Dude, I don't remember ever being tired as a kid.
Okay.
I'm really tired now. Tired was like sunscreen. I don't think it existed in the 80s.
It's
Yeah.
true. That's so true.
Baby oil.
Actually, yeah, that's so true. Now that you say that, I don't know. I remember being tired in high school, but I think it's because I was partying, so I was probably
Yeah.
hungover.
Yeah, that's hungover.
But-
You're mistaking the two
Yeah,
things.
yeah, I was
I think
hungover.
we just went and went and went.
We just went.
Dude,
and
I
went
mean,
and
when's the last time you thought about running? When someone says, "Were you tired as a kid?" We ran everywhere. You got off the bus, you ran to the door. You
Yeah.
went next door to a friend's house, you didn't walk, you ran. If we were running, there was no tired.
Yeah.
Now I think back and I get tired.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
There was always that urgency of let's go do this. Let's go do that. Yeah, you're so right. Well, we had all of that freedom.
Yeah.
It's really an amazing thing when you think about it. So when you were in elementary school and into junior high, because I know your parents had the diner, and so you had that to go to, but were you involved in any extracurriculars like sports or art or clubs or theater?
I mean, we worked at the restaurant. I could carry 4 coffee cups and make change out of a 20 at the age of 6. I mean, my dad's favorite game would be to run around the corner and say, "How many dollars are in 47 quarters?" And then we had to answer it like that. And if we didn't get it, he's like, "Why for I send you to school?"
That's awesome.
Oh,
I have a
man.
question about that. Why are there's a lot of folks from Greece own diners? What's the
Because it was
the-
something they could do with limited language and a lot of work.
Okay.
If they were willing to put their backs into it, be the cook, be the dishwasher, the wife would man the cash register, be the waitress, the kids would run around, they could do that sort of work just based on the sweat of their brow. And they
Yeah.
knew food.
No,
Okay.
yes, they do. They
Our-
still know food.
Our local town diner was owned by a Greek family.
Yep.
So that
It's
was
It
good,
truly is
too.
because it's something they could do with limited levels of expertise and just a lot of work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so did you not do extracurriculars because you were
In
at
high
the
school,
diner?
I was a theater kid. I did every play that came along. I was a
Okay.
political kid. I did student council. I was kind of a nerd. So by the time high school came, I remember being really bored with school. So if something popped up that could get me out of school, I was all over it. We had this thing called Boy State, which the American Legion does. And they do a boy state and girl state in like every state. So 5,000 kids got picked for New York. I became governor of our boy state out of the 5,000, which got me to go to Boys Nation in Washington, where I met President Reagan, and I was one of the 2 people selected for the presidential race in that. I got to go to the Netherlands and England as part of the 25 kids the U.S. picks for a Model UN. So I did a lot of extracurriculars, but like everything else, I did it while working. I worked at the restaurant every weekend. At 10, I would do overnights on the weekend with my mom so that we would be busy after bar rush in town. And I remember reading in the booth, because I was a nerd, I'd read my Stephen King books at 10 years old. Then 2 in the morning would hit. I would bust tables like a maniac. 4 in the morning, we'd go home. 9 o'clock, I'd be up playing with my friends. At 14, my parents showed up with working papers and said, "It's time for you to work now." And I'm like, "Well, what have I been doing so far?" And like, no, for someone else. They got me a job across the street for a lumber yard and hardware store because it was important that I learned to work for someone else. Never remember getting a paycheck. My mom put that away for me somewhere safe. I assume it's still calculating interest today.
Okay, so wait. So
awesome.
so you go and work in a lumber yard after
Yep.
working at the diner basically from your earliest formative years. What was it like having to work for someone else after working for your parents for so long?
We were always the best employees. And I mean that humbly, but honestly.
Yeah.
It didn't matter how old I was. My parents would come visit me in college, and I'd be serving at like a macaroni company at an Italian restaurant, or I'd be bartending somewhere. Didn't matter where I went. My mom always said that she was so proud to hear every employer we ever had say nothing but amazing things about us kids. I would show up at work hungover, stamp still on my hand. I would work the full. We were just raised that work was really important, and how you were perceived at work was really important. And we had bosses, I remember not only did I work the lumber yard, my brother worked for a clothing store in town, like a surplus store called Gallows. And Joe Gallows said, I want you to work for me too. And I'm like, sure, I got some time. And I picked up a third job while, at school and on summers. And the things that man, I cannot tell you how many times he threatened me that if I didn't find second gear, he was going to break his foot off in my ass. There's no HR.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's okay. You know what I did? I found second gear. It was important. And I mean, I'm really glad for it too.
I think that overall, Gen Xers had a strong work ethic because we didn't think that calling into work was an option. That was never an option unless you're literally throwing up and can't stop and are dying on the floor. It was not, like you said, stamp on the hand, hungover, maybe didn't sleep, breaking out in a cold sweat. You're still going to work. It just was never given. That space was never given to us. And so the concept of not going to work the next day or not going to school the next day, it didn't exist.
And I'll give credit where it's due. I'm a hard worker, not like my parents. They were insane. The level of work our parents, for a lot of us, were able to put in, I don't remember my father being sick ever. 12, 14, 16, 18-hour days routinely. And still coming home and being affectionate and a good dad and all those things. So I think we emulated what we saw for I think the reason we did it was twofold. One, it was expected of us. And two, we didn't want to fall short of that expectation out of a sense of respect. I think part of what we need to own is our kids don't need to live up to that expectation because we've kind of relieved them of that expectation.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing we've tried to balance as parents of giving them more space to be able to communicate their needs and actually validate those needs while also trying to still instill a work ethic and expectations. And that's a delicate balance right there. You can easily falter.
And we did.
And in a lot of ways we did.
I'm not saying you and I necessarily,
no.
but generationally speaking, we fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we tried in some ways too hard to for some
the road to hell is paved with good intention.
It's funny you say you don't remember your dad ever being sick. I remember my dad being sick once, and we were like, "Is he going to die?"
Yeah,
and I think he just had the flu.
Yeah.
We're like, oh my God,
So my dad, I remember he had stopped by the restaurant for something. And Sunday was the one day the restaurant closed early. From Friday at 6 a.m. till Sunday at 1 p.m., it didn't close. But at 1 p.m. on Sunday, that was it. The restaurant's closed. That was the early day. Not so we could go to church or anything, but just so that my dad could breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
And I remember we had to go to the restaurant on a Sunday, and it was blazing hot. And we had one of the glass doors leading into the restaurant break, so the glass man came and delivered a sheet of glass and left it outside, and my dad didn't want it outside because somebody might get hurt. Left us in the car. We must have been in the car for an hour, me and my younger brother, very young, 8 and 4, before we realized, wait a minute, where the hell's Dad? When he moved the glass pane into the restaurant going from hot to cold, it shattered. Shredded his arm. He flagged down a truck driving by and got taken to the hospital, and we were still in the car playing with the cigarette lighter, burning ourselves at will. It wasn't until the New York State Trooper came to get us that we realized something was wrong, and my dad was in surgery. They were reconnecting tendons and nerve endings. He was back at work 2 days later.
Oh my gosh. And also, let's note, you guys were left in a hot car.
Love that.
Yeah,
with
well,
the windows up.
The only missing was the free to a good home sticker on our
Yeah.
Now they'd be like arresting your dad for leaving you.
Dude, we treat dogs better than they treated us.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. So you're working, you're doing all the things, and you were able to maintain your academics?
Yeah, and more importantly, my play. I had an amazing childhood. It all fit.
Yeah.
It all fit. The only thing that might have been sacrificed is sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was another good lesson, because you know what? It's overrated.
It's funny. I think we get less sleep now than ever, but we're more productive than we've ever been. And I never thought
when
that
I
would
hear,
happen.
when I hear Gen Xers are like, "Oh, I'd still go out, but I got to be in at 9." No, I don't. Everything in moderation. I'm a night owl anyway, though. I was up till 2, 3 in the morning last night. I got up at 9 today. I don't know. I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Can you though? So, how's your social battery now? Like when you say you can be out, can you be socializing late and not hit that wall of, okay, I'm done talking to people?
There's no wall to hit. If I'm with a group of people that I'm comfortable and happy and I'm glad to be there, I could be there for hours on end, never ending. If I'm being dragged to a wedding where I know nobody and my wife is making me do it out of obligation, I'm ready to go from minute one.
Okay.
So it's not I ran out. It's either I've got it or I don't.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Do you go out voluntarily? Or do you have to
Until
get
about
dragged
6 months ago, I was still bartending 2, 3 nights a week just because I wanted to get out of the studio.
out? Okay.
So I didn't stay here all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you grew up interacting with people in a service industry, so that's like hardwired in you.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I mean, I talk about the restaurant, but when I was 15, so the building our restaurant was in that we owned, we rented out half of it to a bakery at one point, to like a convenience store at one point. And when it became empty, we lost our tenant when I was 15 or 16. So my parents built a bar because my older brother wanted to get into the bar business. So at 18, they built him a bar and he ran it while in high school.
Nice.
He hired the bands. It was only open on the weekends because that was his schedule. Because again, he was in high school. He bartended at 18. He hired the staff at 18. He did the bands and the payroll at 18. And I was bar backing right next to him at 15. And then half the time just started bartending anyway because people asked me for a beer, so I opened it.
And back then you could legally.
No.
Not necessarily. No.
I thought you could back then. Oh, there was
legally no, but nobody cared.
Yeah.
Especially again, small town. Who cares?
Yeah. And what a good deal for your parents because they have a diner next door 24 hours. People are
and they
leaving.
would go right from one to the other.
And they
Go
get
get
French
They would eat
fries.
dinner, they would get drunk, they would come back, sober up, eat breakfast, and go home.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, your parents were on it with that. So by the time you were 18, how many different jobs did you have?
Well, I mean, I'd worked at the restaurant, I'd worked at Gallows, the clothing store, I worked at Russell's, which was a hardware store, lumber yard. Then I went to college in Buffalo, which was about 2 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
When I got to Buffalo, I got a job at a place that was like a service merchandise or brand names. It was called Dahlkemper's. And I got that job my first day. I secured a job there and working at a restaurant called the Macaroni Company. So I was working 2 jobs while I was at college just because the hours worked really well. And it's one thing to make $5 an hour at a retail store. You always made more money serving.
Right.
So I ended up doing both. And then on the weekends, I would drive home and work the bar.
Wow. Okay. So as far as college, were you guys raised? Was college discussed? Was it assumed guys were going to college?
Yeah.
That was something. And then where did you go?
University of Buffalo.
And was that your first choice? Was that
Yeah.
where you went?
That's where my brother went to Buffalo, so I had to go to Buffalo.
Okay.
Parents were already paying for an apartment there. That was it. It was done.
Okay.
You can go to Buffalo State or you can go to University of Buffalo. You choose. So I chose UB because he went to Buff State. That felt like I was flexing something by choosing the other school.
Okay. So wait, did you live in a dorm?
No, I lived in an apartment with my brother.
Okay. So your brother was there. Okay. So was your other brother
So 4 years between us. So my older brother was already at college when I joined him. He was finishing up his 5th year when I started school at UB. And then my younger brother would have been just starting high school and he started working at the bar. It was perfect timing.
Yes.
I'd go home on the weekends to run the bar and my little brother would bar back with me the same way I had done earlier with my older brother.
That's actually really awesome. Are you still the 3 of you super close?
Yeah.
That is really, really cool. Okay, so you're living in an apartment with your older brother. So you didn't really have that dorm experience then, I assume. And you were going home on the weekends. So did you ever have that party experience in college?
Not right away. When I was a junior, let me think, 2 years in, about 2 years in, my parents built the bar in Wolcott for my older brother. And then when he was 21, 22, yeah, and I was about 18. So it was really after my first year of college. with my parents' help, he bought a bar in Buffalo. And then I started bartending while going to college. So I'd work 4 or 5 nights a week while in college at 18, 19 years old at his bar. And that's when the partying happened. I just got paid to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What did you go to school for?
English education.
And is that what you graduated with?
It's what I graduated with. There's no way I could have ever become a teacher. That was a huge misconnection. I love English. I love teaching. I hate parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then don't go into teaching. That's
Exactly.
For
No,
sure.
I started student teaching and I couldn't do it. Parents coming in. It's a different, what it comes down to is that was the beginning of things changing. When we were getting through school, our parents would show up at a conference and say, my kid did what?
Yeah.
And then this was when they started saying, my kid did what? And it shifted. No longer was the teacher automatically believed, the kid was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't do this.
And that's just amplified every decade.
Yeah, they blame
Like
the teacher.
it's never rarely the kids respond. They never look at their
And
kids.
listen, I get part of it. I grew up where if there was a fight, I remember Mr. Pauldine, Mr. Sherrill, Mr. Bogart grabbing kids, throwing them against the wall, they got into it and ended it. And no kid thought for a second, I'm taking a swing at these guys. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
I remember being paddled by a teacher. I have no misgivings about it. I thought it was all just fine. I get a call tomorrow that a teacher put their hand on my 14-year-old daughter. For as much as I'm saying it was fine for me, I've got to be a little bit of a hypocrite here. Maybe it's because I truly don't believe my kid would ever give a person a reason to hit them. And I really believe that because they have the fear of God in them. I raised them. My wife and I are both Greek. Our kids would never. So maybe there's that. I don't know. But yeah, as much as I say, I'm on the teacher's side. If I've heard that the school put their hands on my daughter, it wouldn't be a good day.
But
no way.
No, I think that's consistent though in general with our parenting. I think that's where I think the trick gets us is that we know all the things, so we're not ignorant, but there's so much we're not going to let our kid happen to our kids. We're not going to let our kids be exposed to, or we're going to have their back where maybe nobody had ours, not even our parents' fault, just society in general wasn't like that at the time.
Right.
So I think that's the mix of our parenting is a little bit of our upbringing, but we also did flip it a little bit. And as you said, some of us went too far on the flip, and I
think we all went too far on the flip.
Yeah.
On some level. If we're being honest, we'll look and say, okay, over here, I overdid it. But what parent doesn't?
Exactly. And I think that what's going to happen is because in technology wise, because we were the first parents who had kids who had phones. We are the first generation of parents who have kids who have phones. And I think that as protective as we were, maybe they weren't as feral as us because we knew what was out there with technology. We were semi-ignorant. And I think it'll be interesting to see what the Gen Z parents do. I think they're going to be more protective with technology with their kids because they know technology. So I think they'll be more on it. It's all an evolution, right?
It's an evolution, but I think we know technology better than they do.
As far as
understanding, so Gen Z doesn't know what's behind the screen. They know that if I tap it, it does this.
Yep.
But we're the generation that had to code, that had to use HTML, that had to build programs, that learned BASIC, that learned COBOL, that learned all these. They don't. They just push it. They don't know technology. They use technology. So I honestly think we might have been the last real barrier to tech. I honestly think Gen Z parents are going to have a hard time keeping technology away from alpha because it's what they grew up with. It'd be like us limiting TV time. We talked about it. We didn't do it.
Yeah. No, that's such a great
we gave
point.
them an iPad to watch it in real time while we're eating dinner.
Yeah.
No, but you're right. That is such a great point as far as you guys, we all know how it's created technology, but they have no idea.
Well, it's amplified too with AI, right?
It's going to get worse.
Yeah, like a year and a half ago, I coded our website. Now I tell Claude, do this, do that.
But we have a curiosity that doesn't exist. Like I was using AI chat for something, and I inherently will click to see what's behind it. And you can actually force chat to show you its reasoning as it builds the answer through the prompt. My daughter, my 22-year-old, looked at me and said, "What is it doing?" I go, I'm looking at the source code because that's what we always used to call the information behind the
Yeah.
website.
Yep.
That language, she's like, I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah,
You know, and I showed her. I right click view source. There's the what's behind there, or what used to be behind. I honestly, our parents didn't get tech. I don't think our kids get it. We are again the anomaly.
I totally agree, because I'll do that too. I'd love to see how it was done. I can't help but do that.
I
Piece
think
it together.
we are the only generation that went from analog to technology as well.
Millennials will claim that, and I'm okay with it, but they're not the first. I mean, honestly, I was born in 70. You were born, you said 71. So at 9 years old, I remember Atari becoming a thing. That's, Pong becoming a thing. When they say technology, they inherently mean the internet. We mean the advent of technology entering the home as anything but television entertainment. The boomers can lay claim to it and say, well, we were the first ones that went from radio to TV. I'm like, okay, but something different about a game designed to keep you there using all kinds of tips and tricks. I mean, it's just different.
Yeah. And I remember when we got Atari, it was a huge deal.
How did we get Atari? We're a generation of people whose parents said close enough as a universal motto. Atari was like $500 back then. To this day, I don't understand how my parents have. It must have been like the only Christmas gift for all three of us.
Yeah.
Because adjusted for inflation, it's like $1,500.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know when I got it, that's what I got.
Yeah.
It wasn't like there was other things that came with it. And it was like what you said, Pong or whatever that thing was.
Yeah, we played Combat. We played Combat for like 6 months because there wasn't another game coming. Yeah, the one that came with it is what we played.
I remember getting the Indy 500 game with the spinning deal, and that was so much fun. We'd spend hours playing that.
I don't remember that game. I never had that game.
My favorite game. You could go into ice mode, and they made it black and white. So then, as you're driving, you'd kind of like spin out type of thing.
But I remember Breakout. Breakout was the only one I used the paddles for.
Too,
So my favorite was Pac-Man. Changed my whole life. And Miss
Atari sent me the Pac-Man version of the Atari game that they have out now as part of their press kit, and I've been like addicted. My kids are like, every time we walk in the house, we hear just leave me alone.
Pac-Man took over our whole world. It was a phenomenon, and arcades that whole thing was just magical.
Here's what's amazing, though, and I'll never get tired of talking about this. All of these enhancements that we went through one after another, we used as a means of increased socialization. Very rarely did you sit in your room by yourself playing Atari. It almost never happened. I would become bored with it very quickly. It was a last option. I'd rather do almost anything else. Friends are playing outside, I'd be outside. Someone was either on the second joystick or even in the arcades. People would put quarters up on the screen and huddle behind you watching. And if you were good, that was a very social experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get to keep playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone
would keep watching.
Yeah. No, you're so right. It was a social experience for us.
At the diner, did you guys have video games?
So we had one that they would swap out. So I became king of whatever game that was.
Yeah.
I could play Pac-Man on a quarter for a good hour and a half by memorizing the different screen patterns.
Yeah.
Asteroids Deluxe we had for a while, Centipede, and the guy who did it, we'd get 50% of the proceeds. He would swap out the machines, and if I'd marked my quarters with a marker, he'd give them back to me when he ran them through.
Wow.
Nice.
Did you guys have cigarette machine?
We did.
Yeah.
Yep.
The old pull the lever deal, right?
I can steal. Yeah. My mom smoked Tarryton 100. Everyone's like, oh, I got to go to the store and get cigarettes from my mom with a note. I'm like, I threw the quarters in the machine myself.
Did you ever sneak packs for yourself?
I didn't smoke until college.
Okay.
Bartending, finally it got me. There was just so much smoke in the bar anyway that at one point in a drunken stupor, I just picked up a cigarette and then that was all she wrote for the next 40 years, 30 years.
Okay, so you weren't just a social smoker.
No, there's no social behind it.
Yeah.
I was addicted, hardcore junkie.
Would they smoke in the diner too, though? Because I think that was the thing. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
The ashtrays, the whole
At some point, there'd be a non-smoking section, but it's not like the smoke followed the rules.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
the non-smoking section was always just such an interesting phenomenon to me because it never worked.
No.
Yeah, and then for everything to go non, we were part of that.
Yeah.
Smoking everywhere, non-smoking sections, no smoking anywhere, including
And
bars.
I
And
hated it.
now,
No
yeah,
smoking in the bar. I'm like, if you don't want to smoke in the bar, don't be in a bar.
Yeah.
yeah,
People are drinking and smoking here. That's what we do.
Yeah.
yes, and that actually hurts tips for service people because if you let people smoke in a bar, they're gonna tip you better. They're gonna stay there longer. They're gonna enjoy themselves. The
People
whole
have
thing.
adjusted to go outside. They
Yeah.
have a cigarette. They come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, yeah. So when you graduated from college, so you worked the two jobs and then you
Yeah.
bartended.
Well, and then once my brother's bar was up and running, I still worked at so the only job I'd always work at his place, and then I picked up different things for fun. Like I worked security at Rich Stadium for the Buffalo Bills, so I could go to watch free Bills games on Sundays. Jim Kelly opened up the Jim Kelly Sports City Grill. So I started serving there just so that I could meet all the Bills players. And then he took a bunch of us kids for, the events he would do and we would intern. And then I started bartending at Network, which was his bar. So always something else too. Just because, especially bartending and serving meant, Jim Kelly Sports City Grill and any given shift, there were 20, 21-year-olds working any shift. We'd get done and we didn't have to find the bar that had the people in it. We were the people.
Yeah.
We'd show up 20 strong with a pocket full of tip cash. And that was it. That bar made bank that night. Those bartenders crushed it for tips.
That's awesome. So I assume you're a Bills fan.
Looks like he's part of Bill's Mafia.
Huge.
Have you talked to Nick Harrison?
Nick's a buddy of mine.
Yeah,
he's not from Buffalo. He's a poser when it comes to the Bills, like he is when it comes to GenX. He's like a 1981 baby or something stupid like that. I'm like, dude, where do you get off, number one, fronting for the Bills Mafia? And then number two, you're the youngest Xer I've ever met, and yet somehow managed to look older than all of us.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
He's 80.
Yeah.
He's 80.
He looks 80.
Yes. But he's only 30.
He's 19. Yeah, he's 19.
Dude looks like he survived all four of those Super Bowl losses.
Yes. We had him on. He's the last one. He's the youngest, I think, we've had on.
I'm sure.
Gen Xer.
That had to have been cool, though. That whole Jim Kelly back then, right? The Bills were good. They kept losing, which was a shame.
Yeah,
they never got over the line, but they were good teams.
See what you just said there? It wasn't cool. Isn't the word I would use. It was fun to be part of a dynasty of losers. Let's put it that way. Not exactly New England level status, but it was something.
Yeah.
Okay, so
it was kind of like being Gen X. The Bills. If there's a Gen X of the NFL, it would be the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
That's a great way to sum them up. I love that.
Yeah, it's such a shame. They never got over the hump.
When you graduated college, where did you go next?
Kept working with my brother. He'd opened a second place at that point. I had this idea that there was no hurry. So you got to remember when we graduated, I graduated in the early 90s. There was nothing waiting for us. That was like one of many major recessions, one following another. So when Gen Z talks all the time about how tough it is for them, I get it. I can do the math. I understand that, we've never seen certain things like housing costs are at an all-time high. I get it. But it wasn't exactly easy for us either. The boomers were clinging to their jobs. Their 401ks just got trashed. We came into a period of time where McJobs were the only thing available. I couldn't get a job that didn't necessitate putting on a name tag. So I was in no hurry. I'm like, what's the point of this? I'm not going to go work for the Geek Squad. I'll continue to get drunk every night and hooking up with girls and bartending and having a good time. Mm-hmm. So, 23, 24, 25, that's kind of where I stayed.
In Buffalo?
So, I met my wife, I think it was 29. We got married when I was 30, and then I got into banking. I finally grew up and started working for Chase, first as a platform banker, and then as a branch manager, and then I moved on to an area manager for and then stayed in that field.
Okay, so...
But even then I was bartending every weekend because my wife was stay at home and we did the math. I'm like, listen, if I bartend 2 nights a week, minus taxes, minus daycare, that's what you would be bringing in. So you want to stay home, I'll just bartend on the weekends.
So during your 20s, were you doing all that in Buffalo? Did you stay in
Mhm.
Buffalo?
I had the
So,
best time
so
ever.
you so your 20 so your college and 20s were in Buffalo.
Yes.
And how did you meet your wife?
Arranged, so to speak. I met friends who were like, all right, you're 29. You having a good time? That's good. That's about to end. So there's a Greek festival coming up, and my one friend's wife is like, okay, so there's 4 girls you need to meet. They'll be meeting you at the festival. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? I'm like, no pressure. We're just going to introduce you to some people. And I'm like, you're out of your ever loving mind if you think this is going to work. So I met my wife, and that was honestly, that was it. Done, finished, over,
That was
instant,
it.
like that. And then my friend still put it over. Oh, you weren't ready to settle down. And then 10 minutes later, done. But it's the truth. 10 minutes later, I was done.
That's how it goes, though.
That's how it goes.
That's how it goes. It sounds almost like a Greek dating game at the festival. And
You're
you,
only allowed to be single for so long in the Greek community. I mean, it'd be otherwise, they're just like, okay, what's wrong?
right.
Are you gay? Find a nice boy. Why for you not get married?
What's your problem?
Now, was it always expected of you to marry someone Greek?
No, my brothers didn't. It just
Okay.
worked out. And, I tell my kids all the time, I get that sometimes opposites attract, and it's not. Here's the thing, though. I go, life gets really difficult. Life is going to be hard. Life is going to suck. Life is going to try to pull you away from your partner, even if it's not their fault. So the more things that you have, areas that touch and connect and commonality, so your faith is the same and your upbringing is the same. And oh, by the way, your parents still speak the same native language. So I can go to dinner with her folks and speak to them in Greek, and she can do the same with mine. It helps. It's
Yeah.
just the more you connect in that web, the more things that hold that web together, the more it's going to be able to take what life throws at you.
That's so true. That's such great advice. So when you guys how long did you date before you got married?
So we dated maybe 3 months before we knew we were going to get married. We
Okay.
probably got married a year and a half after our first date.
And was she from Buffalo?
She's from Rochester, so one town over.
But you guys didn't know each other growing up?
She spent the night at my house when I was like 11.
Really?
Her first cousin, my mother baptized. So
Okay.
my wife's first cousin is my god sister. We didn't know each other, though. We didn't really go to the same. We looked at pictures. I'm like, how could we not have been at the same birthday parties? She's like, because my cousins did family party first, then friend party second, and we were never invited to both. But one time she came with my stepsister Alex to visit, and I met her when I was 11, and she didn't give me the time of day. Nothing.
So, did you guys go to the same church?
We went to the same church, but again, we moved 45 minutes outside of the city of Rochester. So we were CEO kind of church people, Christmas, Easter
Yes.
only.
Mhm.
Yes.
And plus the restaurant was always open on Sundays, and we figured God understood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. And then you said your mom baptized her first cousin. Did your mom volunteer in the church?
It was 45. No, my mom volunteered at the restaurant.
So how did she? Because I'm Catholic, so in order to baptize someone, you have to be
Have money.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have to pay the church.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
Member in good standing, up to date on your gifting.
Okay.
Through
You're
language.
tithing.
Yeah.
Yes. 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 Okay. Okay. What a trip, though, that she spent the night at your house when you were
Yeah.
11. Wow. Okay. So you guys get married, and then did you stay in Buffalo?
I moved to Rochester.
Okay.
What's the time difference there? How far away is it?
45, an hour maybe.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, that's not
We
bad at
would
all.
so we would set up a date. I would meet her at her sister's house. So in Greek, for a lot of Greek families, you don't leave the house, especially if you're a girl, until you get married.
Mhm.
So even though my wife was in her 20s, she was still living at home. Now, when I would pick her up for a date, I wouldn't pick her up at her parents' house. I would pick her up at her sister's house. So she would go to her older sister's house, who was married, and we'd meet there, and then supposedly go to our date. We never ended up going to the date. Her sister, let me make a pot of coffee, then you guys can go. We would be just talking, laughing till 3 a.m. I'd get on the thruway to go back to Buffalo. I'd shower and go to work. Rinse and repeat over and over again. It's, like I said, sleep is overrated.
You know what, though? That's effort. And that's standards. And I think that's what's missing, unfortunately, for a lot of Gen Z young women is young men aren't doing
But that's
that.
connection too.
Well, yeah, but
That's
I mean,
connection with
that
the family.
effort,
Yeah.
that's effort.
Yeah.
And I know that there are young men that do that, but that's not necessarily, I think technology has also removed effort.
Dude,
We
too.
worked for
do
things.
you remember being in a bar, seeing a girl? And I'm not going to speak to your motives. We're not going to get into that. But for whatever reason, you deemed it worth the risk to cross that long floor, break the circle of friends she's with because they traveled in packs, and try to do whatever it took to peel her away from the flock. 9 times out of 10, you walked back just done. The whole world witnessing your level of rejection. Because not only did you have to have that girl's interest, you had the one friend that didn't want to let her go for whatever reason and was like, no, if you're leaving, I'm leaving. So, I mean, that the bouncer had to be met. Kids don't do that today. It's swipe left or swipe right, but to face in public, no.
No, and I think it's a rite of passage, especially for young men. And I think it's such a disservice to them. They don't get that opportunity because I do think they would rise to the occasion, but things have been made too easy for them.
There's never been and I make a lot of videos. If you see my content, I've got what I call a lot of different verticals. It's almost like the Carol Burnett show, part skit, part this, part that. One of the things that I keep going back to is reacting to the younger generations. They'll put something up and I'll react to it. No matter what else may be true of them, this is the most anxiety-ridden generation in the history of the world. Medicated, and again, I'm making no judgment. Maybe we've all been anxiety-ridden. We just weren't allowed to feel it. Maybe we all needed therapy and medication. We weren't allowed to take it. But all of that aside, dude, they can't talk to people. To tell them to go up to a stranger, especially an adult. I told my daughter, you realize every time I had to call your mom, I had to talk to her father first? At 8 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, I didn't snap them. I called their house phone and spoke to their mom or their dad and asked permission to speak with them. Give my intentions. Hello, Mr. Campbell. This is Johnny Kotrides calling. I was wondering if it was okay for me to speak with Rochelle. I had some questions about homework. There was a speech, or you didn't get through.
Yeah.
You called at the wrong time. You didn't get through. You called during dinner. You didn't get through.
Yeah. I remember that being a big thing. You don't call during dinner.
No.
Like, that was a societal thing.
Yeah.
You do not call during dinner.
And when you did, you got snapped at. Please don't call during dinner again. Click.
100%.
Yes. And that was even true, like, for a girl just calling another friend's house. Like, you would speak to their parents and you'd say,
They
hi,
don't speak
Mrs.
to
Smith.
us.
And you'd say, it's Nicole. Can I please
Your
come
kids'
see home?"
friends, maybe if they were coming over for something, but otherwise they bypassed us entirely. They
Yeah.
called their phone, they snapped, they text. We're not involved.
Yeah, no, it is. It's such a huge shift, and I don't think any of that's for the better because I think you're right. And then throw in COVID, right?
Yeah.
And depending on what state you were in, the lockdown could have been way more extreme than like Florida.
We're in South Carolina now, so we're just south of Charlotte. My brother's experience in New York versus ours in South Carolina, night and day.
Yes.
We were just
He
there last
saw a
week.
Facebook post I did in October of 2019 or 2020. My 9-year-old's trick-or-treating. We're on a big, we took a truck in our neighborhood, put a hayride behind it, and he called me. He's like, what are all those kids doing trick-or-treating together? My only answer was twofold. I'm like, well, we're in South Carolina. And two, to be fair, they are wearing masks.
Yeah, it's
for masks.
It's true.
That's funny.
Well, we're in Florida, so you can imagine we were even worse than South Carolina.
What,
So during
what you're
that time.
describing too, though, we had to do that in 6th grade. We had an event that was square dancing. You had to ask a girl, will you go square dancing? And then like junior high, the dances, right? So we started that stuff at a young age. They don't do it
And
at
we
all.
had a lot more dances. My daughter might have 2.
Yeah.
We had one almost every month because Drama Club would sponsor what we called the Record Hop. AV Club would sponsor it, whomever, and you would pay $2 to get in, and that money would go to the club. So we had these little dances constantly, and even though they were informal, it was never a dance if there wasn't a group of girls by the girls' bathroom consoling one of the girls who was crying her eyes out because something had happened. I mean, we talk about Dallas and Dynasty and Knots Landing. Middle school dances had drama all over any of those.
Yeah.
It's so true.
100%.
It's so true. But you're right. Even in middle school, there's like no dances.
No.
I was shocked. My kids didn't go through that. We had so many dances in high
They
school.
tried it once, right? Because of COVID shit or something.
They tried it, but they shouldn't be
But then
trying
they
it. It should
wrapped
just
all
be a
these
thing.
rules
Listen,
around it and made it weird.
They
They-
also
yeah.
do stupid things like they would have the dance on one side and then they would open the gym up on the other so the boys could go throw basketballs.
Yeah.
If you have a 14-year-old boy and you say, be rejected by a girl or go shoot basketball, what do you think is going to happen?
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
know exactly what you're talking about. My kids went to Catholic school and they did that. And
Don't
all the
do
boys,
that.
yeah, all the boys are playing basketball. All
Yeah,
the girls
no.
took all that time to get themselves all pretty
Yep.
and they were all excited, just standing there in circles talking
Yep.
to each other.
No,
with
don't do
jeans.
that. That doesn't
No,
happen.
I agree. Okay, so when you guys moved to Rochester, your wife's a stay-at-home mom. How many kids did you guys have?
So we had my oldest daughter in 2003.
Okay.
We'd been married just about a year, even, no problem. She was even late. I think my oldest daughter was like 3 weeks post
Wow.
delivery date. She just wouldn't come out.
Yeah.
And then my wife's job for the next 8 years was to get pregnant. She got pregnant 8 times in 8 years, but we
Oh,
only have one other daughter. So
wow.
something happened during the delivery of my oldest daughter that compromised my wife's cervix, and we couldn't get past 20 weeks. We would deliver the baby at 20 weeks, 21 weeks. She would lose it at 18. And every time would be just different enough that they're like, well, this was premature rupture of membranes. This was a stillbirth. This was a premature delivery. Every doctor, so we never were able to say, hold on a second, this is the same thing happening all the time. Can we get insurance to pay for a surgical stitch, a cervical stitch, a cerclage? Can we get help here? And they're like, well, these things happen. So finally with Cleo, they put in a cerclage, stitched my wife's cervix shut, which got us 5 more weeks. She was delivered at 25 weeks, 1 pound, 12 ounces,
Wow.
3.5 months early. But it was enough. She's no evidence of prematurity, doing remarkably well. She was a rock star in the NICU. She came off the ventilator that first night. They told us it'd be 6 weeks on a
Wow.
ventilator. She was on it for a day.
Yeah.
We know that she was twins at when she was first conceived. We knew there were twins coming. And then at about 12 weeks, the one Cleo ate her twin. The other one disappeared. And I'm like, you're such a bitch. You ate your own twin. You were like, this one of us is not going to make it out of here. It's going to be me. And they
That is a
literally
lot.
say your wife was putting out 2 times worth of everything, and your daughter basically took it because there was no other twin there at that point in time. And we honestly think it propelled her forward just enough that she wasn't as young as she appeared.
To go off the ventilator the first night's
Yeah.
insane.
It was insane.
That's
We had
crazy.
one nurse that came up to us the first night, and she had been with us a little while, and she knew my wife's history, and she goes, I just want you to know you have nothing to worry about. You will have no worries, no issues, and this will just sail by. And I remember being so angry. I go to my wife and go, she can't say that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm pragmatic. I'm Gen X. I'm like, she doesn't know what's coming. Where does she get off saying that? And we didn't see her again after that. And I'll be damned, we had almost no issues all the way through. I don't know who that angel was. I don't know what she knew that we didn't know. And even though at the time I was a little angry, it helped.
How long was she in the NICU total?
So she was born January 24th. She was due May 4th. And she came home in April. So about a month before her due date. She was in there for 92 days, I think.
So you guys were going back and forth every day?
Every day.
Wow.
So 8 years, and you're saying 8 lost pregnancies?
Yeah.
So, and that's not just losing in this first 6 weeks.
No.
That's
We
losing.
delivered a little boy. We delivered a little girl. Just too little to survive.
I mean, that's trauma. I mean, especially for both you and your wife.
I guess.
Yeah. I mean,
God, it sounds so cold. We got to a point where gallows humor comes into play, where this dark sense of humor we have comes into play, and we'd deliver the child, we'd lose the baby, and the nurses would come in and they'd be like, do you need to speak to somebody? Do you need to see a therapist? And they'd walk out and we're like, can we just go home? First of all, we had a daughter to go home to.
yeah.
So we weren't going home to an empty nursery. We'd had our miracle already, and we were so grateful that we had what so many people struggling never got, which was a kid at home.
Right.
So that was number one. Number two, we believed honestly that each time it was just waiting to, we didn't lose 8 kids. It took 9 kids to get the one she was always there, boy, girl, or otherwise. It was always Cleo. It was always
Right.
going to be Cleo. So we just kept trying until we couldn't try anymore. And if it happened, it happened. If it didn't, it didn't. And I'll be honest, when it happened, we're like, holy shit, we didn't think this would ever actually happen.
Did
You
it
know?
take you a long time to trust that she's okay and this is it and it's actually happening?
Not really. We weren't even really as nervous as we should have been. I knew a lot. I'd done my research. There were people in the hospital that thought I was a doctor. They would always ask my wife, what kind of medicine does your husband practice? She's like, he doesn't. Please don't ever tell that to his face. We believed. We had faith. We believed it would work out. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, did your older daughter, was she old enough to be aware of what was going on?
It sucked for her. It sucked.
Yeah.
She'd come off the bus. She'd see me home from work early. And I remember one of the losses, I got to the door and she wouldn't come to the door. She was standing by the bus. And I'm like, and she's like, no, why are you home? It sucked for her. No two ways about it. Absolutely sucked for her.
So with Cleo, was she just ecstatic?
She was, but she's still an older sister who's 8 years older than an annoying little sister.
Yes.
I go, you wanted her so badly. Now weeks go by, you don't stop by. I mean, so that's normal.
Are they close?
They love one another a great deal. They're as close as they could be with 8 years between them.
Yeah, it's hard.
14 and 22. The 22-year-old has things she wants to do.
Yeah. So we have a 29, 25, and then 16. So our 29 and 16, there's a 13-year. He was our bonus baby, right? So there's a 13-year age gap and then 10-year age gap. And it was like that for a long time. You know, they're away at college and he's 9.
They're getting closer
but now
though.
I will say now it's closing, right? And the older he gets, once he can go to bars, we're good.
Well, now they golf together too.
Our older son and him golf too. It's as the younger one gets old enough to do those adult things, and then they find each other again. So that was during your 30s, it sounds like, right?
Yep.
And you're in banking during that time, in Rochester, and your wife stayed home as you guys are building this family. You have a question?
I do. Did that test you guys at all? Or bring you guys closer?
I can't tell you how many times I've told my daughter, especially the 22-year-old who's had relationships now, don't buy into what society tells you. Relationships shouldn't be hard. Marriage doesn't necessarily, marriage is hard work. Life is hard work. If on top of it, coming home to what should be safe is also a struggle, you're fucked. You will be tested. You will be tried. Home needs to be safe. I'm not saying you're not going to argue. That's irrelevant. But no, it didn't test us because we knew we were in this together. The minute she said, I can't do this anymore, it was over. As long as she said, I want to keep trying, we kept trying.
Yeah.
I will never hurt my wife ever. It's inconceivable to me to ever cause this woman, aside from just the stupid things I do, but like to hurt her, to cheat on her, to cause, after what she did to give me the family I have, there's not a chance in hell that could happen. There's nothing important enough to hurt her.
Yeah, you guys were love at first sight too. So that probably, that connection.
But again, it's that connection that you instantly realize it. Sitting at the table having coffee with her and her sister and her brother-in-law at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday and realizing we grew up the same and our parents embarrassed us the same and her parents had a diner and mine had a diner and our parents spoke broken English and we got, there's so much commonality that it's easy to relate to one another. The butterflies go away eventually. That's normal. What comes next is what's important. Is there enough to sustain you, not in the first 20 months, but in the first 25 years?
Agreed. And when you're choosing your partner, you need to remember you're going to go through things like what you guys went through, and you're also going to lose parents and all kinds of things. You need to make sure, is that person going to be there for you during these times? You've
got to be prepared to hate your spouse nearly to the point of murdering them in their sleep and choosing not to do it.
Yes.
You just summed up her life.
Dude, it happens.
No, you are so right.
I tell my kids, they're like, have you ever really been mad at mom? I go, mad at her? I've hated her guts for moments at a time.
Yeah.
And vice versa. I go, I can't hate you kids. We're blood relatives. We're strangers that chose to put our lives together. There is a very real difference.
Oh my God. That is so accurate. How long have you guys been married?
24 years.
Okay, so we're like, I don't even know now, 32, 31.
Wonderful years.
Yeah, so
I can't relate to that at all.
When I tell you, you are so dead on with that. You are so dead on. But okay, let me ask you this, though. Is your wife your best friend?
She is my absolute best friend in the world.
Right, and Brian's my best friend. And I raised my kids that you need to, friendship is the foundation of your marriage, because shit is going to happen. Life is going to be hard. Tragedy is going to strike. And you guys are going to argue, but that friendship is going to stop you from doing something horrific to your partner. Like you said, cheating or something else. There's a line we will never cross, because our friends.
And there's consequence if you do, and it's not the consequence you think. My oldest daughter asked my wife at one point, if you found out that dad ever cheated on you, you'd leave him, right? And my wife's answer shocked the hell out of her. She goes, I don't know. It depends. And my daughter's like, what the hell do you mean it depends? And she's like, well, listen, it's very easy for you at 20 years old to be all judgmental about it, but why? What happened? Was it a one-time thing? We have family. We have a house. We have a life we built. What does my life look like without him? Versus, will it be the same? No. Will it ever be the same? No. Will he regret? I mean, but the answer isn't easy. So my mom told me, there's a Greek expression, I think, and I've cherished it. She goes, treat your marriage like the most treasured thing you'll ever have, that if it breaks, you're gluing it back together. But understand, if you're careless enough to break it and glue it back together, every time you see it, it's going to crush you to see all those cracks in it. So be careful with it. Treat it like the fragile thing it is, and keep it in a safe place. And, bartending, I would drive home at 4 a.m. when I was done, no matter what. There was an office upstairs from my brother's bar where I could have crashed for the night. I never did. And I always told my wife, I don't want you thinking, what did he do after the bar closed? I don't want you having coffee with your girlfriends and having them say, oh, John spends the weekends above the bar after closing the bar every weekend. I didn't want to leave room for doubt. If I was working at the bank and a teller had an issue with her car and needed a ride home, I made sure somebody else was in the car with us. So it was never me alone with another girl. I didn't have female friends, and my wife never had male friends that we were one-on-one with. It's just, and these are the lessons we try to teach our girls, and they're like, well, that's not fair. That's not right. I'm like, I'm not talking fair or right. I'm talking what makes a good 24-year marriage for us. And that was treating it carefully and leaving no room for doubt so much as we could.
Such great advice. I agree with everything you said.
I totally agree.
Especially, we've actually talked about how I don't think if you're married or in a relationship, you should have best friends of the opposite sex.
You shouldn't.
You shouldn't. And we got so much
I'm sure you did.
That.
It's not a conventional wisdom, big thinking, gentle parenting world out there to believe that. It's old-fashioned reasoning.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it not true. No, my wife does not. It would be inappropriate for her to have a male best friend. We always joke and say, unless he was gay. And then I'm like, maybe not even then.
I agree with you. And I think that's a good word. It's inappropriate.
Yeah.
It can happen, but it's not appropriate.
It's not appropriate.
Leaves too much room for doubt, like you're saying.
Well, and also, what are you needing to share with that person you can't share with me? That's where the relationship breaks, right?
Yes. Now, that part of it, I know I'm not everything my wife needs.
Well, no. Yeah.
She needs people she can talk to about her feelings and about me and about all kinds of things, but she can find that in another woman. She doesn't need to find it in a guy.
Exactly, because I'm a big thing about When Harry Met Sally, where Billy Crystal says invariably all men want to sleep with women, that they're it just is part of it. So with a guy, you just don't know his intention. He can seem like the bestest buddy in the whole wide world, but there could still be that undercurrent. He wants to sleep with your wife. And so
it also comes back to that hate thing. There's going to be a moment where you're going to hate your spouse. Do you really want to be with a very good friend of the opposite sex when that moment hits you? Probably not the best thing you could be doing.
Yeah. No, it's
and that's when people are like, well, I messed up. But you know what? You know how you wouldn't have messed up? if you weren't alone in a room with a person of the opposite sex while being married. Then you wouldn't have messed up. I know that I'm not infallible, so I remove myself for a situation where the temptation could have me fail.
Yeah. No, that's so wise. That's so wise. So then as you went into your 40s, were you still in banking and
Yep.
bartending on the weekends?
Yep.
So when did this
COVID.
content? Okay. So you're banking and bartending on the weekends. You're still in New York?
No, we were here at that point. We moved to the Carolinas in 2016.
Okay. And everything shuts down, including the
Everything shuts
bars,
down.
right?
Yep.
And had
Even
you,
in South Carolina? Because
For 15 days to flatten the curve, I think flattened everything everywhere.
yeah.
Some states realized that it went on way longer than that, but everybody
Yeah.
stopped for like that 2 weeks, maybe for a month. You know, that was a federal mandate initially, if you remember.
yeah. So did you ever go back to bartending during COVID?
I did go back to bartending. I didn't ever go back to banking again.
So had you been on social media up until 2016?
Never.
And
So
what was the first platform that like why?
no, COVID happens. First thing that kind of, my oldest daughter got hit hard by the pandemic's social restrictions. She was a junior going into her senior year. No junior prom, no senior ball, no real graduation, no dating in the formative years, no going out with her friends, no school dances, no football games. It fucking sucked.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't talk politics ever, but at the time and even now, I'm like, the threat to our kids, and my wife and I are not in any way immune compromised. We don't live with my older mother. We didn't live with my in-laws at the time. We were putting nobody at risk. We talked to our doctor. We're like, you know what? There's really not much risk to our kids at all and very little risk to us. So we're like, we have to find a way to allow her to have something because this is killing her. And we reached out to friends of ours in New York. Her best friend in the world was a boy that she grew up with, and it's completely platonic relationship, but they were since kids. And I remember talking to our old neighbors. I'm like, would you consider coming down with Jory, spending a week with us? We'll section ourselves off. We'll isolate beforehand. We'll do whatever you want us to do, if you think it'd be possible. And Lynn was like, we don't have to do anything. We'll come down tomorrow. We're not even the least bit concerned about it, you know, whatever. So we formulated this thing where Jory would come down. I told my daughter that her grandmother was sending her a package because she missed her. And when the FedEx guy delivered it, she wanted me to videotape it for her. So Jory came down wearing, of course, a full face mask, a FedEx hat down like this, pulled over his eyes, FedEx shirt, handed her the package, and I'm recording it. And when he removes his mask, she starts hugging him and her legs fail. Like she loses all the strength in her legs. She collapses hugging him. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever recorded. And I'm like, wow, this in a moment where everyone is so jaded and separated and segregated and fighting one another. And this is a really cool moment. And so I reached out to a couple different outlets, and the Today Show picked it up. Good Morning America, I think, picked it up. A couple of the videos picked it up. It got like 41 million views.
Wow.
And it made a decent amount of money for the kids. So I'm like, wow, you know, this is pretty cool. I didn't realize. Now I had to find somebody whose account was monetized. So split it with the platform got 50%, and then taxes, and then each of the kids only got 25% of what was left. So it wasn't a lot of money, but it opened up my concept that, wait a minute, there could be some money in this. And if you search best friends FedEx, that'll still pop up immediately.
That's awesome.
So then COVID hit, and my youngest daughter discovered TikTok, and my wife didn't want her on it alone. And as you've heard, this is the first time since I was like 10 that I wasn't working 2 jobs and doing a million things. So I didn't know what to do with myself. So I started doing the stupidest trends and dances and goofy stuff with Cleo. And at one point, she got into a discussion with me and asked me why I thought my generation was so much tougher than, you know, why is Gen X so tough? I turned the camera on myself, started talking, and that video went nuts. And I mean, I just saw it go from like 5,000 to 10 to 100 to 200 to a million. And I enjoyed it and started doing more of it. And I told my wife, I'm like, listen, I'll pay the bills. I'll work double time. I'll work overtime. I'll work every night bartending. I want to keep my days free to see if I can turn this into something. And she's like, well, you've never not taken care of us. If you need me to do something, I will. She's like, do what you got to do. And it did.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So TikTok was your first platform
Yep.
where you solidified
Which I think was
yourself?
most Gen Xers. That's where we kind of found a platform. A
Yeah.
lot of Gen Xers that I continued, Gina and Nick Harrison and Sherry, a lot of us started on TikTok because it was the new thing.
Yeah.
And we just checked it out.
Everybody was home watching it.
Yeah, there was nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Binge
Yeah.
Netflix and go on TikTok.
Yeah.
So when did you then branch out into Instagram, YouTube, Facebook?
So I had probably 100,000 followers on TikTok and thought it was a big deal. And my wife's like, Facebook's for old people. Have you thought about maybe, getting a Facebook page going? And I'm like, I don't know. Is Facebook for videos? And she's like, I think they're doing a lot of reels, they call them. And then Facebook, because it is for old people, took off 3 times as fast as TikTok.
Of course.
It just went crazy for me. And then YouTube, a year or two later, I'm like, I've been trying YouTube. It just didn't hit until it hit. And then Instagram hit. And now probably a little over 2 million followers across platforms, but all platforms combined, 30 to 50 million views a month.
That's amazing.
amazing.
And this started around 2020 then?
2020. I didn't really have anyone following to speak of until 2023.
Okay. So it was kind of building the content
Yep.
up until then.
And practicing. My
yeah.
early stuff is painful to watch now.
But I think that's true for everyone, right? You start
guess.
somewhere. And
I
then
don't like to see it.
you
Dude, the
learn-
scariest moment was getting a call from my older brother. Do you have an older brother?
No, I have an older sister.
no.
Older
Older
It's
sister.
different. Getting
Oh,
a call from your
sure it
older
is.
brother and the words out of his mouth were, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean? What are you doing? Is that you on those TikToks? I'm like, oh, for the love of Christ.
Yeah.
Well, my heart. I'm like, no. Because at that point, what am I going to say? It's not like I'm earning a living. I'm embarrassing myself for free in the
Right.
hopes that I could earn a living. And now he goes, you know what? I'm so glad you didn't listen to me, because he goes, I had no idea. I didn't know what I didn't know. And if
No
you don't have an
one.
older brother, you don't know the power of an apology from an
Oh,
older
sure.
brother. That is that's cool.
What did your parents think?
My dad at the time didn't really know, and he passed not soon thereafter. My
Mhm.
mother, my wife, and my sister-in-law, probably my 3 biggest, keep going, you'll make this work. My
Mm.
mom's like, it'll happen. You'll be on TV someday. Someday. I know. And to
Did
this day, she'll come visit and she's like, let's make a video. Ask
Oh.
me how I grew up. Mom, no one cares.
Yes.
No. Ask me. I'll tell you my story. Mom, no one cares.
That's not true.
Oh,
You-
it's true. You ask a
No.
Greek woman how she grew up. How long
Okay.
is your regular podcast?
Oh, we can
gotta
average
get her
4 to
on.
5 hours. I'd love
Yes,
to have her on.
days.
How old is she? What
Bring her
generation?
on. She's
I'm not allowed to say how old she is.
But she's silent generation, I bet. I bet.
She's the oldest of the boomers, youngest of the silent gen. I have
Okay.
one
She's
video where we
interesting.
do, I think it's on YouTube, and we talk for about an hour together, and it's priceless. But she
That's cool.
expects virality, and I'm like, you're not going to go viral with a 2-hour video. You're going to go viral where I make fun of your accent. That's it.
That's true. That's true. I am being serious though. If she ever wants to come on, she has an open invitation. We would love to have her on because
You
I
should
bet
check out
she-
that video.
Okay,
she
I
is-
will.
She's my hero.
Yeah.
She's my inspiration. The woman, both my parents, amazing people, hardworking, beat us with a spoon, not spanked, beat us with a spoon, beat us with a slipper, and then cried about it after. I mean,
100%.
she was a victim of her upbringing to the extent that she did what everybody else was doing, but broke the mold in that even at the time, part of her knew what was wrong.
Yeah.
And has apologized for it profusely over the years. I'm like, you have nothing to apologize for. Number one, you raised 3 retarded boys. And I know that word's fallen out of favor, but we were retarded. There's no other word for it. We weren't mentally slow. We were the word in the worst case use of the word. We broke things every day. We would rip down curtain rods, pulling them right out of the wall for no reason. We were just animals. And
It's
I'm like, we
clinical.
deserved every beating we got, because if we hadn't, you wouldn't have had a house to live in.
Right.
It's
What
the
do you?
clinical definition of retarded.
Well, retarded meaning they're slower than was supposed to be normal.
Yeah.
We were slow
We did
learners.
stupid shit.
Dude, we did
Yeah.
retarded shit. My
Yeah.
mother's prized possession, when she came to the States, she was in love with Camelot, the Kennedys. It was like, that was what America was. And this woman never bought anything for herself. But she bought a bust of John F. Kennedy and kept it on the mantle in the house that we rented when we were growing up. Well, my older brother and I were watching Batman from the 60s at the time, and the way they accessed the Batcave was to take the head off of a bust and flip a switch.
Yep.
We shattered it into a million pieces trying to break the head clean off the bust.
Oh my
no.
God.
Yep.
Oh my God.
She's surprised about it. She came home speechless. She's like, why? The one thing you know I love, why?
Oh.
Because we're stupid.
Have you gotten her a replica?
No, she doesn't want a replica. She wants that one.
She wants that one back. Okay, so as far as well, actually, you mentioned your dad passed. When did he pass?
My dad passed in 2021.
Right after COVID started.
Yeah.
Was it from COVID?
Technically, sure. Why not? Everything else was.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not saying that as a slight against the medical industry, but it seems like they had no other choice but. Here's an old person that died in they had him in a home at that point in time. He was going through dementia. It only accelerated during COVID. It only got worse because we couldn't see him. He was isolated. New York State was not allowing any visitation at all. And it frustrated me. I'm like, you have workers that are coming in that have access to my dad and then going home to their families. So it's not like he's in some sort of looped off, sanitized environment. So strangers can see him and we can't.
Yeah.
That bothered me. So, he died alone.
That happened to my cousin in New York.
They're
Same
horrible.
exact thing.
Inexcusable.
Yeah. They totally screwed it up there.
Yeah.
So was your mom able to see him during that
They
time?
divorced when I was 18. Stayed friends their whole lives.
Okay.
But my parents was a true arranged marriage. My mom was 20. My dad was 39. He was starting to come to the United States to make a better life for himself. My mom's mother died when she was 12, and there were 6 kids total. My grandfather couldn't raise them. So as they got of age to marry, he just found someone to take them. And so my mom was arranged to marry my dad. And a year after they married, she came over here and they stayed until we were older. But it was never a traditional husband-wife relationship. So they divorced when I was 18.
Did they continue to own the diner together even after they
For a
divorced?
long time, yeah.
And they kept working together?
Yeah. Dude, it wouldn't be unusual to look out the window of our house and there's my dad mowing the lawn.
Okay.
I'd have friends over, they're like, who's that mowing the lawn? I'm like, my dad. I thought your parents are divorced. They are.
So it sounds
But
like
eventually my mother remarried and that ended that, but it took that to do it.
right. How
I
long...
always joke that my parents got divorced and somebody forgot to tell my father.
How long from when they got divorced did she remarry?
6 years, maybe 5, 6 years.
Okay. And is she still married to?
He passed on,
Okay.
but she was married to him longer than to my dad, so for a very long time.
Okay. All right. So your dad then in the nursing home was really alone then?
Alone.
Because
Yep.
it wasn't like your mom, they were still married or anything. Were you guys able to go to his funeral?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That
So
was
they
it.
didn't bar you from that because
Yeah,
I know there was.
no. Once the person's dead, it was okay. To
Right. Right.
But they didn't have funerals right away either, though. Did you have to wait 6 months or like
The
a
Greek
year?
Orthodox Church pushed back pretty hard as a group. They leaned in very hard because they were trying to stop churches from doing things like communion and I understand people's logic. I understand somebody saying, listen, science is science, and you can't do this when there's an infectious plague going around.
Mhm. Mhm.
But the church and believers are between a rock and a hard place. You either believe that there's a God who can do these things or you don't. And if it's beyond God to make sure you don't get COVID from a wafer, then what's the point of going to church in the first place? Just call it a day and be done. So, my faith is my own. I don't talk about it a lot, but regardless of what I believe, I absolutely understand why people of faith acted the way they sometimes did and said, you know what? No, we're still going to go to service. And when people slight them for that, I'm like, how do you blame them? They either believe or they don't. You don't get to have it both ways. You
So
can't
true.
say that God created the heaven and earth and yet can't keep you safe from COVID. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, that's so true. That's such a great point. So does your mom live down near you guys, or is she still up in
She's
New
in
York?
Florida. My older brother, she was thinking about moving up here with us. She's in Venice right now.
Okay.
Okay.
But
Okay.
my brother just bought, I call him Raymond now because he bought the house next to hers down there. And they spent a lot of time down there with her. And I mean, it's an hour and a half flight for us. So we
Yeah,
fly down regularly. We fly her up to be with us regularly. She has a friend that they're together. So she's good.
that's awesome. And now is that your older brother or younger brother down
Older.
in Florida? So what's your younger brother? Where does he live?
He lives in Rochester, married, three
Okay.
kids.
Okay. So as far as your content, uh did it evolve into the Gen X niche or
Yeah,
did you
I'd say so. I mean, I remember talking on that, but it's never one thing. Like Gina always jokes with me. She's like 90% of what Gina does, very, very well, by the way, is react to other people.
Mhm.
That's the crux of hers. I probably could reach into a bag and pull out 20 different things that I do regularly. You
Yeah.
know, I've got a series called Questions About Classic Television where I've pulled All in the Family or The Brady Bunch, and I add one every week, and I'll be doing that forever because there's enough television to do it.
Yeah.
I have a deep dive in every year that we experienced as Gen Xers from like 65, probably I'll take it through 99 because
Yeah.
those were the formative years for most Gen Xers. I do reactions to Gen Z. I always say that I talk about Gen X era nostalgia, a Gen X era life, or about things today from a Gen X era perspective.
Mhm.
So all of my content is Gen X, but only because that's what I am.
Right.
It doesn't mean that everything I talk about is necessarily Gen X, but I can't talk about anything without incorporating why I feel that way. And I feel that way more often than not because of the way I grew up.
Right. So it's more from a Gen X perspective. It's
Yeah.
many different topics from a Gen X perspective.
Yep.
If you really think about it, I'm sorry, you were going to say. I don't want to interrupt.
No, I was just curious. I think you have to be one of the most dialed in people I've seen in understanding and capturing Gen X perspective. And
Thank you.
if you've evolved into that, do you research it? How the hell did you get there?
There's
Because
no research.
you're just dialed in.
Well,
Because
he grew up watching
no, I know, but
all of the TV
the things
shows.
you talk about, I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about that.
Yes.
Oh my God, I forgot about that too.
Yeah.
You're dialed in. It's amazing. You got
I
us.
I don't know, man. Maybe it's because I'm first generation Gen X. I got to experience it completely. I always joke and say that my life is a Disney movie because there were no parents around.
Yeah.
You know, I'm Dora the Explorer, over the woods, through the bridge, what nobody's around.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my parents weren't they weren't bad parents. They gave us everything we needed. Where they needed to step in, they did. I don't know. It's a really weird juxtaposition to be like, no one was watching me, and yet we grew up in a small town, so everybody was watching me.
I can totally relate to that. And that's what I mean. It's like I grew up in the Northeast. I grew up in New Jersey, small town. Same exact thing. It's wild. You just capture it. It's wild to me.
I really love what the TV shows when you talk about because
Mhm.
there's things I've forgotten, but when you talk about it, you bring me right back to that feeling of watching those shows. I'm literally that inner child of me. It's that comfort that so I have a visceral reaction, and I don't always when I'm scrolling and I come across Gen X stuff, but your stuff, a lot of your stuff really does bring those emotions back in a really good way. And I almost feel like that feeling of, oh my God, watching Love Boat or that excitement before Chip starts and the music
For
and
me, it's
all
the
that.
CBS logo, the special, the word
Yes.
special
Yes.
spinning with
Yeah.
that
Yes.
drum beat and that feeling inside of us. I just did a video saying that I don't think kids have that specific joy anymore. Being outside playing and having somebody's mother say, "Hey kids, come in, Wizard of Oz is on today." And we
Yes.
didn't expect it to be. We didn't know that it was going to be. We didn't know the schedule. We couldn't watch it on demand or stream it. We had life just kind of come at us. And when it did, we had to react in real time. And so you'd run inside the house, get the Jiffy Pop going, sit down in front of the TV, and you knew that you caught it. And if you didn't, you were going to be the kid at school tomorrow that missed it and would have to wait another year.
Yes. Because it was
That's
once a
special.
year. It is
That's
special.
amazing.
Yeah.
And it's not just wait another year, lose the opportunity to see it as a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Because it's different seeing it as a 10 or an 11-year-old. There's a different magic that happens when you watch Rudolph at 7 versus
Yeah,
watching it
100%.
at 8. You've missed something, you've lost something.
And then
And our
Frosty
kids
comes on.
today can watch it anytime they want, but because they can, they never end up watching it at all.
You're right. You're right. They don't like the Christmas specials were a once a year thing. Frosty, Rudolph, all that. That was it.
You didn't miss
And
it.
you didn't miss it. And you're so right because it's accessible. They don't watch. They don't even
Don't watch
watch
it.
it. It's
Tomorrow.
it's the craziest thing. The whole experience has been removed from pulp culture in so many ways because it's just
Well, it's been
literally
replaced by something else.
No,
But maybe not as.
it hasn't.
Yeah, that's what
It
I mean.
hasn't. What could it be replaced by? A viral TikTok?
Yeah, I don't know.
Not the same shared experience because it's not
No.
happening at the same time. Kids watch Stranger Things, right? It was not in the number, still not in the numbers that people watch The Last Mash or
Right.
Yeah.
but it did hit a wide range of people, but it didn't happen at the same time. One person watched it on Tuesday, somebody else saw it on Thursday. Their conversation is, did you watch the Stranger Things yesterday? No, because we had to go to my grandmother's house. We're going to try to watch it this weekend. There was no
Yeah.
try to watch it. You watched it or you weren't going to watch it. That's it.
Yeah, you're right.
So
And then
in mass, we got to come into the cafeteria and talk about V. Did you see Robin had the babies? Oh my God, when the lizard tongue came out or when Diana ate the hamster. We watched it at the same time and talked about it the next day.
yes, and
Which
that
is
was
why 40 years later, when I talk about it, you see Diana's jaw unhinge and then the hamster go down and that little kid inside of you wakes up.
yes, that's what it is. It's
Yeah, I
that
think you
inner
just summed
child
it up.
wakes up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've been grinding through adulthood, right? So we forget that we had those moments, and then I come across one of your videos, and it's like, oh my God, and it is a way of feeling seen.
Right.
It's like because you back then we had those shared experiences without really even understanding how important that was that we were having that shared
Well,
experience.
we didn't even know it was happening.
No, it was
We
just all
didn't.
we knew.
Yeah.
And
We didn't know it
And
was
think about
happening.
how
till we
rare it
talked
was.
about
Our
it.
parents didn't have it.
Yeah.
Because
No.
if you had silent gen or older boomer parents, television still had not yet become what we got.
Yeah.
So they didn't have it, and now our kids don't have it. I relate it to music the same way. We're the only generation that sees music. If I say Thriller, if I say Girls Just Want to Have Fun, if I say Like a Prayer, going through your mind instantly are those videos. If I say Dire Straits, you see that animated refrigerator mover guy move. We see music. Our parents didn't have MTV. Our kids no longer have it. People aren't making videos like they did for us. It is only a Gen X thing.
You're so right. You are so
But
right.
that's what I mean. You're dialed in. You got this.
I
Yeah.
do have my memory is a very strange thing. Not eidetic, not I can remember where I was on July 4th, 1973, not photographic, but when it comes to things and life experiences and television shows and books I've read, and I forget nothing. Like
Yeah.
almost literally nothing. I remember not just moments on a TV show, I remember entire seasons, right down to the dialogue, the lines. It's my memory is probably my number one resource when it comes to why I can do what I do.
Yeah.
Do you think some of that comes from those formative years of sitting with your mom and interpreting those shows for her?
Maybe.
That it
It was
was so
just such a
ingrained?
cool moment in time for all of us. Family time was forced in a way. If we wanted to watch TV, well, then we had to watch it with our parents and our siblings all together, because for a lot of us growing up, there was really only one television, and there was really only 3 networks, and we were going to watch what our parents decided was going to be watched. Sometimes it was what we wanted. Often it wasn't. But we all went through it together in one shared space. It wasn't Johnny's in his room, Sally's in hers, Mom's in the kitchen, Dad's in the den. We all did it together. And I
Yeah.
think I keep reinforcing those memories because it was a really special time. And the older I get, the more I realize how special it was.
Yeah. I'm wondering if there's any way that the younger generations can recreate that at all. I
We
don't, it would
can.
be so much effort would have to be put into that. because
I mean,
every
when's
kid
the
has
last
a
time you
phone.
got all your kids to sit and watch something together with you guys?
It's usually an event. It's like either my birthday or it's like a
Christmas,
holiday or
Thanksgiving.
Christmas, Thanksgiving. We watch Christmas movies.
Yeah.
It's a
And for us, it
holiday
was a
event.
Tuesday. It
Yes.
was a Wednesday. It was a
Yes.
Thursday.
Yeah. That's
And when it was
exactly it.
over, even as kids, we didn't want that time to end. Not because we enjoyed hanging out with our parents. We didn't want to go to bed.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So being awake meant hanging out with our parents.
yeah.
You'll watch anything.
Anything. I'll watch MASH.
Yeah.
Yeah. You loved MASH.
love MASH.
I
was-
didn't as a kid.
So, well, on the note of all of that, and I'd like to ask guests this question. So I'll be really interested how you answer this because your knowledge is so vast and your memory is so accurate. What would you say is your favorite movie from our Gen X childhood?
So for me, like favorite movie always has to be one that in some way changed me, influenced me, stays with me. I mean, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I love that movie. It was entertaining. It was fun, but that was it. Favorite movies have to in some way stick with me. And, Brian asking Claire if they'd be friends on Monday morning the way they were in Saturday Detention stuck with me as a kid. Because I had events that I attended outside of school, whether it was, hanging out with somebody I was Greek Orthodox, but we didn't have a church that was Greek Orthodox in town. So one of my friends was part of a Presbyterian youth group. I went with them because it was an event. And all of a sudden at that group, I hung out with kids I normally wouldn't.
Yeah.
And they were cooler than me. And I was really excited about that. And then come Monday morning, we weren't friends anymore.
Yeah.
That moment in that movie shook me in a really weird way. I'm like, wow, because I was Brian. And
Right.
then as high school progressed, I became Andy. There was this shift. I could grow a mustache. Facial hair happened. I developed. I don't know. Stand By Me stuck with me. These kids, Chris dying, life changing. Even though it was in the 50s, it felt very 70s to me about this group of kids that one was, the kids were all so different and yet they were friends. And I had those friends that my parents probably wouldn't have wanted me to have been friends with.
Yeah.
And if they found out I was hanging out with them, they're like, tried to put an end to it. So, you had to tell the kid, I can't hang out anymore. Why? Because my parents think you're trouble. You didn't say that, but, that kind of thing. Chris Chambers, that stuck with me. I loved Stand By Me. I loved The Outsiders. I absolutely loved The Breakfast Club.
Right.
Those were the movies that made a difference to me growing up. And to your point, a word I hate, I felt seen.
Yes. Yes.
I always joke, our parents were seen and not heard.
Yeah.
We were neither seen nor heard. Go outside. Get out of here. So,
it's so true.
to be seen was weird. And those are the movies that made a difference.
Well, especially that moment in Breakfast Club. That's
huge.
what was happening is you were feeling seen when Brian asked Claire that. And there's something about Breakfast Club.
And then I flipped. Before I forget, I will say I was Claire. By the end of high school, it flipped. I was the more popular kid.
Right.
And would hang out with some kid outside of school that I wouldn't give the time of day to come Monday morning.
I think
Breakfast Club was right. We were all of those kids.
We were all of those kids.
Did
Yes.
you evolve knowing you were the kid that wouldn't get hung out with? Would you hang out with that kid? Did you learn from it, I guess?
No, because that's my point. I started as Brian. I turned into Claire. Once you become popular, you pull the ladder up behind you. Yeah. I mean, that's what happens a lot for fear of being pulled back down again. The drowning victim will pull anybody down with them. When I was the unpopular kid, I would have dragged them all down.
Yeah. It's so true. And especially in our generation, it was as you climbed that ladder, you kept going.
You kept going. Don't look back.
I don't know if the younger generations are like that. I don't know.
No, because they all get to be special in their own way.
Well, yeah.
No, I mean, I have a 14-year-old girl. I still get the popularity thing is still there. She talks about popular girls, and I'm like, what makes them popular?
Yeah.
I go, do they know more people? Do more people know them? She's like, no, Dad, that's not what popular means. I'm like, actually, it's literally what popular means, but okay.
Yeah.
No, she just means the people that they look up to, and they're almost always mean people.
Yes. Well, especially
very rarely are popular kids good kids.
Yeah, especially girls. There's mean girls, and there's mean girls in every generation, and that will never change. But I wonder how much technology plays into it. I think if they're more popular, if they get more views, if they have more followers, all that stuff.
But even the unpopular kid ends up going to karate, ends up going to dance class, ends up going to music class, ends up going to voice lessons, ends up going. Kids today have so many interests, and parents
Yeah.
are running around like lunatics. My mom and dad, first of all, didn't have the time, but if I'm being honest, nor did they have the inclination to
Yeah.
drive us all over the damn place for soccer or for anything else. Figure it out, you can go. Don't figure it out, I'm paying the mortgage. You do what you got to do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No,
They
now
get
it,
to feel special no matter what. We were told early and often there's always someone smarter, faster, stronger, better. Nothing special about you.
yeah. Could you imagine like saying that to our kids? Like none of us said that to our kids.
No.
None of us would have ever said that to
No,
our
we'll
kids.
tear down
My
the
mother
other
told me
kids,
she
it's
could
better.
take me out tomorrow and make one that looked reasonably like me in about 9 months. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that doesn't even take into account travel sports and the phenomenon of that. I mean,
Never would have
and to sacrifice the time and the money that people do for travel sports.
The money I'm about to spend for my daughter on travel volleyball. My mom to this day. But then our parents turned into these. You remember in soap operas when somebody else would play the part of somebody for whatever reason, and you'd hear this like disembodied voice being like, the part of Luke Spencer will be played by. I hear that voice every time my mother walks into the room and talks to my kids. That's not my mother. The woman playing this part is not the woman that played it when I was living it. I'll complain about the money for travel, this or that. And she's like, well, what are you going to do with it? It's okay. Really? Need I remind you, I'm still waiting for those paychecks that you put in a safe place.
Yeah.
Yes. That's so true.
That is so
okay,
true.
same question. Is there a TV show you could pick?
$6 Million Man when I was little. I ran in slow motion all over my neighborhood making that sound.
Yep.
Greatest American Hero, Dukes of Hazzard, Batman on reruns in the 60s. I didn't even know it was cheesy.
None of us did. We ate that up.
And that show was the first lesson. That and Sea Monkeys are probably the first lesson I ever got in real disappointment. Because the Batman show ended every episode in a cliffhanger, but because we watched it in syndication, Tuesday didn't necessarily follow Monday. So you'd always get up the next day to find out what happened, and almost never would you know.
Yes, that's so true. I never thought about that. You're so right. You're so right. Oh my gosh.
You couldn't even Google it. I'm like, how the hell did Batman get out of that? Oh, well, be okay not knowing.
Yeah. You're just left there.
That's fucking hilarious.
What about music? For you back then?
Phil Collins was huge. You know what's funny? When it comes to music, when we were growing up, there's the cool answer of the music I'd like to pretend I listen to, and then there's the real answer of the music I actually listen to.
Yeah.
The cool answer, I'd be like, Iron Maiden, Motley Crue, Judas Priest. The real answer is Whitney Houston, Tina Turner, Phil Collins.
Yes. I always thought like people who answered The Cure were very cool.
That's what I mean. But
I like The Cure, but I never listened to The Cure. But they were
I
really
listened
cool.
to what was on the radio, Casey Kasem's Top 40. And no
Yeah.
matter how cool people try to pretend they were all listening to it too. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been on Casey Kasem's Top 40.
Yeah.
We can all pretend all we want. We never heard Kenny Rogers singing Islands in the Stream with Dolly Parton. We still know every goddamn word. It's just, it was on, we listened to it.
It's such a great point. So through your content creation, I mean, in addition to obviously brand opportunities, but have there been other opportunities come your way that you've been surprised by that you weren't expecting?
There have been moments, like I did a video talking about how Night Ranger and Starship was my first concert. And I've got the ticket stub, $12.50 to see Night Ranger at 15 years old. And Night Ranger liked the video and started following me. That was a cool moment. I did a video on Little House on the Prairie. Actually, I did a video on the top 10 villains we grew up watching in pop culture, and Nellie Olson was number 2, right behind J.R. Ewing. And so Allison, who played the part of, commented, and now she follows me. It's the people that we watched growing up that now that there's a sort of weird connection, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I go to different conventions now. I'll be going to Orlando in a couple weeks. And I'll be able to interview Larry Wilcox and Eric Estrada, Robert Pine from Chips.
Yeah.
Cool.
I've met the Happy Days cast. I'll be interviewing Too Close for Comfort, Melrose Place reunion. So being on stage, with those people is incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I interviewed Todd Bridges and Christopher Atkins. And one of the questions I asked Todd Bridges, at both of them, was, we talked to fishermen about the one that got away. Has there ever been a role that ever got away from you? And Todd Bridges mentioned how John Hughes had to meet with his people. And ultimately, he talked to the writers about getting a part on the Breakfast Club. And it didn't work out because, as Todd Bridges says it, the guy walks around him a few times and says, I don't think we can do it because I don't know how to write for black people.
Oh my gosh.
And so he didn't get the role. Well, People Magazine, people.com picked up that. I don't know how. I don't know if there was somebody in the audience, but all of a sudden I'm getting sent a blurb from People Magazine with my name asking him the question. Chris Atkins answered that he was originally the guy for Footloose. He was supposed to be his, but he went out the night before and completely screwed up the audition. And, my comment to him was, we all could have been playing 6 Degrees of Christopher Atkins instead of, and he's like, so those moments are kind of surreal for me. I'm like, is this really happening?
Yeah, I'm sure. I can't even imagine. So when are you up on stage?
Yeah.
Like and then there's an audience, right?
Yeah.
So
and I'm moderating the panel.
You're moderating. So you're asking them questions, but then the audience is also asking them questions.
I'll go out into the audience if we have time and get some questions for them. I did that. I didn't do Debbie Gibson. I moderated a panel for Debbie Gibson. And then she was so sweet. A week later, I'm home having dinner with my older brother was visiting, his wife and my wife, and I get an Instagram notification that I got a voicemail from Instagram. And it was Debbie Gibson just thanking me for doing such a nice job on her panel, and she really appreciated it. And I'm just like, I just got a voicemail from Debbie Gibson.
That's amazing.
I'm like, and the 16-year-old boy inside of me is like, dude.
That's amazing. And she looks great.
She's phenomenal. Sweet,
she is.
kind, humble, grateful. 95% of these celebrities that we grew up watching, if they're acting, they're still acting. I mean, I honestly don't know. All I can say is that my interactions with them on stage and behind stage, 95% of the time, these are people that are grateful, that are so humbled by the fact that something they did 30 or 40 years ago still resonates with people. I think it's amazing.
It absolutely is. Were you going to ask something?
He answered my question. I was going to say, I was curious if they're humbled, nice people. They all seem like it. Like Eric Estrada, he seems like a hell of a guy. Is he?
I'll let you know. I get to meet him for the first time in a couple weeks.
So how do you prepare? I mean, are you told what you can ask ahead of time? Or
Well, there are very few instances with very few celebrities where they're like, we need you to clear the questions through our people or whatever. But usually I'll have just broad guidelines. But listen, doing what I do, I almost wing everything all the time. It's just, I know what I let the 8-year-old inside me ask the questions, and that's enough.
That's awesome, because you really are representing all of us who grew up watching them and are still fans. And so for all of us kids, you're kind of representing all of us. I think
it's the other half of it is asking them about what they think about a 9 or a 10 episode season versus what they did.
Yeah.
They did 5 seasons on a show. Today, that would be a lifetime of 25 episodes a season. That's 150. And they speak to that. And, some say provides opportunities, others not so much. It's, streaming things, binging things. I've binge watched series, and then all of a sudden my wife and I will be into the second episode of a new series we're watching. We're like, we've watched this. But because we binged it in 2 days, we didn't retain it the way we retain being forced to talk about it for a week and anticipating it for a week and having to force it into our memories over a summer so that when it plays in the fall, we're still equally vested. We forget that we're watching something in real time. My wife and our favorite conversation on the couch is, what are we watching again?
Yeah.
We were watching something. Didn't we start something on Netflix? And then we start hunting. Was it Hulu? Don't know what it was. Don't know where it was. It's not the same.
Yeah, it isn't. It absolutely isn't the same. How did you get involved with that? Did they reach out to you?
No, this is one thing. I'll talk about luck. This wasn't luck. I had a plan. Started paying my own way to the conventions. Started getting a hotel close by. I would go to buy my own ticket, and I would tell fans and followers of mine that I'm going to be there. They would meet up with me. I'd take pictures. I always made sure to take pictures somewhere near somebody I wanted to meet, So invariably they would be like, who the hell are you? And why, why are people taking your picture? I would make content while at the convention, hoping that somebody that wasn't be like, oh, wow, this guy's here giving us free press. And slowly it turned into, okay, now they're sending me press passes. Now they're giving me access to be able to film. Now they're paying for my room in my hotel. Now they're letting me interview on stage. So it was just a very concerted effort to know what I wanted to do. And I just put steps in place to try to get there.
That's
Doesn't
awesome.
mean like, sometimes I still go on my own. If I can't get some, and then I'm like, I'll work towards getting that to happen too. But that's why I do what I do, so that I can go.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be so surreal at times when you're sitting there interviewing some of these people and thinking, I cannot believe the inner child in you must be freaking out.
It doesn't hit me while I'm up there with them. Part of it is we feel like we know them. They were such a huge part of our childhood that I feel like I know them. Like I'm up on stage, finally reconnecting with somebody that I grew up with. It's really weird. There's no nerves involved. I thought there would be, but I don't get nervous much anyway. I'm blessed. I'm ridiculously fortunate. It took to be 55 years old to do something in my life that I love for a living, but it was never a prerequisite growing up. I tell that to my kids. It's not loving what you do for a living is not a prerequisite. Loving what you do for a life is.
Yeah.
Yeah, most people don't like what they do.
Today that's changing. Kids today don't buy into that, and I disagree with them. Because that means they will be miserable forever then. Yeah. Because they're like, I'm only doing this till I find something I love. Good luck with that.
Yeah. But don't you think you finding this midlife is pretty consistent for a lot of Gen X? A lot of Gen Xers are finally going for their quote unquote dreams or something for themselves midlife after grinding up to this point and giving themselves permission to take the chance to chase that dream?
We've always statistically been more than normal levels of entrepreneurship. Gen X is a huge spike in either a side hustle or owns their own business. It's always been that way. It's the multiple job mentality. It's I had to put together 3 Mick jobs in order to eat after college. One job wouldn't do it. It's the boomers never retired for their own reasons. 401k was never secure enough. Whatever, they didn't leave.
Mm-hmm.
And when they started leaving, all of a sudden we were a lot cheaper to let go in order to give the job to the millennial behind us, because they had an appropriate amount of experience to get the job done without having to pay them as much to do it. It's very common to be 55 years old as Gen X, need to work to eat and not be able to find a job. That's a thing right now. Very overqualified for a lot of things. People don't want to hire us thinking we're not going to stick around. So I think we just find a way. But to say that we're finding what we love midlife, honestly, I think we just are more of a generation that finds love in what we do, not necessarily love what we do. If I don't love my job, at least I'll find people at work that I like being with. If I don't like the people at work, at least I'll try to find some semblance of joy in the work. We find a way to make it work.
We adapt.
I think that's accurate.
In every situation. And
every situation.
And it's the Gen X hustle is what you're talking about. So adapting and hustling.
And our parents had a hustle, but there was no joy in it.
Right.
We seem to, and then our kids arguably have no hustle, but try to find joy in anything that.
Yeah.
We found a way to make it work and found not to hate it. The mentality of the miserable dad coming home from work, sitting on his couch, opening the beer, nobody talked to me. For a lot of us, that didn't happen. The dads changed diapers, got involved with the kids, took the carpool rides sometimes. There was a change. We found a way to find joy in it, both at home and at work. That was different.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I think that's another way Gen X parents changed how we parented, especially for the men. Like, I think Gen X dads are 100% more hands-on than depending on the father.
Of course.
But then their own dads were. Just culturally, you guys made that shift. Not all Gen X dads, but I think, and then I do think millennial dads are even more involved and more, But
I've got millennial friends, and we'll be sitting there having dinner, and somehow somebody will come up where, oh, I want to redo the living room. And then the guy starts talking about curtains and disagrees with the wife. And I turn to him and I go, what are you doing?
yeah.
He's like, what do you mean? I go, you have no say in this. Leave it alone. She buys the curtains she wants. And he's like,
Yeah.
well, dude, that's not right. It's my house too. I'm like, no, it's not.
No, that's not where
No.
they should be stepping in.
Who gives a
No,
shit?
they need to let that go. I
But
mean,
they
how-
don't, because again,
Yeah.
there's been this morphing. There's no gender roles necessarily. My wife and I are very old school, and it works for us.
Right.
She never mowed the lawn a day in her life. I rarely, if ever, washed a dish. I take out the garbage. I fix the broken thing. I move the furniture. It's just, and it works for us. And it's almost like a dance. If I see the lid is up on the garbage, I know I need to take it out. I don't ask.
Right.
That's
right.
But I will get up, like I changed my share of diapers. I spent plenty of nights where I was the one that stayed up, even though I was the one that went to work in the morning. I'm like, she's like, well, honey, you have to work in the morning. I'll stay up. I'm like, what? You don't have to work in the morning? Once I leave, it's not like you sleep all day. So no, I can be tired at work just like you can be tired at home. I took my shifts. It's the way it is.
That's
we
rare,
found a
though.
balance again.
Yeah, but the first part of what you said, that's very traditional. But to the fact that you also stepped in, even though you had to work the next day and helped her and recognized that she is working her ass off during the day, that's rare for your generation, I think.
I don't think it is. I think most of my
don't?
friends that I don't know.
I don't know.
I think there's been a pivot to that. Plus, I mean, I've made videos where I talk about where also women, Gen X women are the Anjali generation. If you remember the
Yep.
commercial,
Yeah.
I can bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan, and never let you forget you're a man. You
Yeah.
women were sold this lie that equality meant doing more. No, you don't get to be equal. You get to have the same job, get paid less, and then still do everything you did before you had a job. That's bullshit.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't know how you guys got it's being intelligent women being sold that line of horseshit amazes me.
But we were watching it from the time we were little, though. Remember, we're
Yes.
9 and 10. We grew up being told to be a complete successful woman, you need to have a clean home, raise your children, work all day, look beautiful, be thin. You know, there was no break for us, and
Yeah.
that's success.
I mean, you were also the generation that it was okay in a commercial for a guy to come up behind his wife and pinch her side to
Yes.
let her know it's time to start eating Special K. Dude,
Yes.
I would have been bringing back a bloody stump if
Yeah.
I tried to pinch my wife's side.
It's so true. It's so true. And I do think that's maybe where I think maybe the millennial generation has adjusted in that I think the men help more at home. Like, I think that there is that domestic labor is shared more. But as far as having an opinion on the curtains, it's gone too far.
Well,
It
that's
has
what I
to stop
mean, though.
there.
So women
Yeah.
taking on the man's role meant they never got rid of the traditional female role, right?
Correct.
Where I'm seeing the issue today, and again, just my humble opinion, men are taking on those traditionally non-male roles, but they're abandoning theirs.
Yeah.
My biggest problem is when I don't see, and again, it's outdated. I get it. It's old fashioned. I get it. But if there's a bullet coming through the door, it's going to hit me before it touches my wife or my kids every
Right.
day of the week and twice on Sunday. There is no chance that I'm not the one ultimately responsible to provide for my family. Period.
Right.
My wife
Right.
helps. If she wants, she ended up working for a friend's restaurant right now. She works 2 or 3 days a week, gets out of the house. She can quit tomorrow. And if social media goes by the wayside, I'll dig a ditch. It's my responsibility. And I know it's wrong. I know it's outdated, but I miss that a little bit. And I know women don't need me to take care of them, but I still want to.
No, I don't think it's outdated. The way we've raised our sons is you need to make enough money that if your wife chooses to stay home, you can support her. But if she would like to work, you support her. But you need to be able to support your family. And so I think there's a way to do it where you're actually supporting women. You are lifting them up, but they can choose either way.
And that's
And
how it was in our house. And we knew
Yeah.
that before we got married. We had that conversation. My wife said, I want to raise our kids. I don't want a stranger raising our kids. I don't want even my parents raising our kids. I don't see the point. She had friends that would drop the kids off at daycare at 6 a.m, pick them up at 7 p.m, and put them to bed at 8. What's the point?
Right. Plus the
Why?
cost.
Why?
And the cost. The cost.
And the
so-
cost.
No, and we actually had that conversation too, and we've done an episode on some of this, but I say to young people, have that conversation first. How do you see your roles? Make sure you both see eye to eye before you even step into this, because that's a huge foundation of your marriage and how family life is going to go. And that has to be communicated. And I don't think enough people talk about that before they get married. And then
And it
I think
doesn't
there's
have to look
friction.
the same for everybody, but allow for
No,
it to look different for everybody. Like I will get
100%.
pushback sometimes, like, well, you guys are really old fashioned. I'm like, it works for us, for both
Exactly.
of us.
But
Yeah.
I
So
think,
so it's okay.
Yeah.
but I think it just works. We say old fashioned, but it works. That's
For
a
us.
recipe for success. But if I think a lot of people followed that too, it would probably bring a little
Maybe.
sanity back.
Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. One thing I do on my content is I try to stay away from things that are polarizing or divisive.
Yeah.
And whenever I do touch on a topic that could possibly divide people, I say, listen, this is the only reason I believe what I believe is that I've lived my life, not yours. If
Right.
you were born into my world and spent every minute experiencing what I experienced, then you'd be me. But you didn't. So you're not. And it's okay that you're not. We don't disagree for the benefit of disagreement. We disagree because we've had different life experiences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And your uh whole platform is your perspective. It's your Gen X perspective on all these different topics. Now, do you remember the first time you were recognized by a follower?
I think the first time it happened in a crazy amount. Like sometimes it would happen off. Do you look familiar? And then maybe that's where we went to Disney as a family in 2023, maybe. And you know how they rope sections off and you're not supposed to, but that's the shortest ways to go under the rope.
Yeah.
So I'm doing just that, breaking the rules. My wife is behind me and she hears somebody yell, "Hey!" And my wife goes, "I'm mortified." In that moment, I'm like, we're getting kicked out of Disney because my asshole husband won't walk around the rope. It was a Disney cast member. And she's like, "I follow you." And she's like, "Can I get a picture?" And I'm telling you, from that moment, posting that picture let other people know I was there, I guess. And it just snowballed. And it was just crazy. And it happens at every con I go to. I'm like, is it going to be me walking around and feeling awkward and nobody coming up to me? And that's always the fear, and it's never the realization.
Do you get recognized? Can you just go to the grocery store and you're
Not
fine?
here. There is a hole in Charlotte for some I'm glad.
Yeah.
I went to get my Verizon bill taken care of, and the woman that waited on me recognized me. Sometimes I'll be out and someone will hear my voice and it's usually the voice that gets them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But not so much here. I think it's people don't recognize you unless they expect to see you too, though. If I'm at a con
Right.
and I'm wearing my stuff, I'm wearing a shirt that's Gen X, then they're like, okay, I get it. If
Yeah.
I'm in a polo shirt then not so much. I don't know.
Do you ever get uncomfortable with the attention?
Never.
So it doesn't matter how many people are approaching you. You're
Awesome.
good with all the energy that's coming at
Give me
you.
a hug. Let's take a picture.
Okay.
I'm so blessed. I get almost no trolls, almost no negativity. I get every day showered with positivity and affection and people telling me that I'm unlocking memories. I've had people tell me that my videos have helped get them through chemotherapy sessions or sitting with their parents during hospice, or they've had traumatic brain injuries and it helps them retain or bring back memories, or just thank you for letting me know that it wasn't just me. A lot of Gen Xers think that we're unique in the way we were raised. And I've had people tell me, my mom didn't hate me. I grew up thinking my mother must have hated me for the spankings, for the disdain, for not being the main character of the story of my life. I just grew up thinking that, I had a bad relationship. And now the things that sent me into trauma, I'm watching you make fun of and laugh. And then reading comments of other people growing up the same way, also finding a way to be okay with it. They're like, you're helping me re-envision. I'm the one that went through it, but you're making me see it in a different way. It wasn't my mom, it was every mom. It's just what they knew.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right. It's like you're helping them rewire their subconscious a little
I
bit.
guess.
You
No,
know?
I'll get a message, oh my God, I saw you walking at the convention, but you were talking to somebody that didn't want to bother you. I'm like, always bother me. I'm there to be bothered. If I'm at the hospital and there's something going on, then maybe not then. I'm showering in the gym. Maybe not that moment. At the urinal in the bathroom, wait till we're done. But in general, there's no barrier, there's no wall, I love every part of it. It's amazing.
How do your daughters feel about it?
They hate it.
I'm sure you embarrass them, right?
Like poison. The 22-year-old is better with it since, it pays for all the bills. The 14-year-old is in constant fear that her teachers will figure it out and make the connection, in which case the kids will figure it out. But Cleo jumps on my Sunday Night Lives constantly. She's done a few videos with me, so
that's awesome. I mean,
just kids being kids. There's no such thing as a cool dad.
No. And I don't think that age, because our 16-year-old doesn't know who any of the Gen X personalities are. So I think on their social media, they don't see any of the Gen X stuff.
So mine crosses over just because of the Zoomers that I put onto my page.
Okay.
When they're sitting at home crying about putting in a double shift, and I realize that their version of double is 6 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to call them out on it. That's not a double. That's a short day.
It is. It's so true. No, and that's actually smart, because that is one thing I've noticed with him and his friends, because they'll say, who are you having on? And I'll say, and I'll totally expect them to be like, oh, that's so cool. And they're like, who? I do think it'd be cool if Gen Xers can figure out how to cross over more with Gen Z and get out there. And that's a great way to do it, is duetting them in that way.
And I'll say, listen, if there's an exceptionally challenged individual who can't, if I've done videos where I took a clock into the bar that I used to work in, an analog clock. It's hanging here. I've taken the face off it so I can move the hands with my fingers. And I'll tell the kids, can you put it to 7:45?
Yes.
And they'll be 7:25, 8:25. I'll put it, and there's no numbers on the clock purposely. It's just a big clock with hash marks, no numbers, because I'm an asshole. But it's in good fun though.
Hilarious.
Yes.
Or I'll ask them, like I would write out Sade, Susie and the Banshees, Leonard Skinner, all these bands that were just messed up, and I'm having them read it, and they're like, Sade, Inks, In Excess, Inks. And then sometimes I'll get some people in the comments like, well, how do you expect them to know it? I go, I don't know. How did I know who Bob Hope was?
Yeah.
Why could I do Who's On First at the age of 8?
Yeah.
Why did I know Bing Crosby, Doris Day, Father Knows Best? All without the internet. Yeah. We still knew how.
Yeah. And
why did I know what a telegraph was, but kids don't know what a rotary phone is?
Right.
No, they don't get off so easily. They should know.
I agree 100. I don't know how that happened, that disconnect. I'm not sure. Maybe they got so far into their world because of their
they get
phone.
to watch their stuff, not ours.
Yes.
We watched the Bob Hope Christmas special. We watched Lawrence Welk and all that stuff because we had to.
Yes.
And now I'm so glad we did.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. Before I ask my last question, do you have anything? I always have to ask him because afterwards he'll say, I wanted to ask one more thing.
No, I think my big curiosity was just how you got so dialed in. I'm blown away because you.
Is there anything we can talk about more authoritatively than our own life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about my life and my experience. I don't need prep and research for that.
And your perspective.
Yeah.
I
mean, deep dives, I'm very selective. There's things I don't touch and people ask why. I never see you do anything on WWE, WWF. It wasn't a thing for me.
Right.
I never really see you dive deep into, the basketball or, you don't talk about Michael Jordan, Larry Bird. Wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
I was a dork. I was a geek. So I'm only authoritative on the things that I experienced and loved. And people call me out sometimes. I'm like, well, not my thing.
I think you answered my question though, because we all grew up. You touch on a lot of stuff we all grew up on, but I was into Jordan and Larry Bird, right? I was into that stuff and more sports but everything you've touched on, it's like, boy, that's in my head somewhere. So it's unlocking. I do think it's cool that you're touching people who might be in the hospital or having brain trauma, right? That's cool stuff. That's
I've got
really
this
cool.
one woman. I was in Rhode Island for a Comic-Con, and she's like, I'd really love to come see you. You're right down the road. I haven't left my house in 8 or 9 months. She goes, I was a caregiver for my mom. When my mother died, something broke. I just can't leave the house. And I said to her, come early. I'll meet you wherever you want me to meet you. I'll make sure that it's quiet, that it's safe, that whatever it takes. She came. And she'll be meeting me in Orlando again for the next con. And, you know, she's like,
Wow.
my kids were amazed that I did it. She goes, but I didn't want to have you be right down the road and have me not there. I don't know that I could have forgiven myself. And she's like, thank you for being, you know, that person that could help me get there. That's incredible. You know how privileged
Yeah.
I am to have that kind of moment in my life? That's amazing.
Absolutely.
It's cool you recognize it though, and put
How could
your own
anybody
energy
not?
into it. A lot of
A
people
lot of
wouldn't.
people
A lot of
wouldn't.
people
Well,
wouldn't.
I
But
don't think so. I think some people wouldn't, and the very small some people that wouldn't happen to be loud, and we hear of them. They're not the majority. The majority
yeah,
of us do.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. So do you ever get imposter syndrome?
I don't think so because I'm just being me.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think because your entire platform is based on your own
People, I mean,
authentic
I'll
experience.
meet people like, my God,
Awesome.
you're exactly like you are in your videos. Or I'll do
Yeah.
these interviews and, you know, you can fake something for 15, 20 minutes, right? But after a while, I would think the veneer comes off and they're like, you're exactly the same. I'm like, well, I'm lucky. I don't have to, I'm not acting when I do my stuff. It's just me. So it's me there and it's me here. And it'll be me if you know, if you guys go to the Fanboy Expo in Orlando, it's just that's it. It's me.
You're being authentic. That's the
Yeah.
key. Exactly who you are. So I think that is definitely a huge ingredient of your success because that resonates with people. So
I
I
just
think
don't
that's
know where
awesome.
it goes. Like I'll get imposter syndrome when I finally become a success doing this to the level that I see as being a success. But I just remember being a kid and doing so much. Like I told you, I met Ronald Reagan. I'm one of 25 kids to go over to Amsterdam for a Model UN. Achieved so much. Was really good student. Did very well in school. And you know, we grew up in a generation where okay, that's expected. You did your best. That's your best. And what do you want? A trophy?
Right.
And I think I've still got that in me where, you know, it's not a big deal. And I want it to be. I want to get big enough that I say to myself, okay, that's cool. I did something amazing. I'm just not there yet.
Do you know how to define that for yourself?
I'll know it when I see it. My wife says you'll never see it. I don't know. I like people are always like, what is the end all be all? For some people, it's to become an actor and be featured on something. For other people, for me, it's to be a talking head. Like I envision CNN or Fox or MSNBC or the Today Show doing a segment on Gen X and having me be the person they call for that segment. And that it's always like we have with us again, John Kotrides, an expert on
Mhm.
that. I think would be, I would love the opportunity to represent our generation in a way that is more tangible
Yeah, that'd
to
be
be seen.
awesome.
I guess that's being seen, right?
It is. It
Back to
is.
that.
It is. It's
I
being
think you
seen,
could do it.
but it's also by you being seen in that capacity, we would all be being seen because
Yeah,
you're such a great representation of all of us. So, and that's the key, right? Is that we were not seen, we were ignored. So, I think that would be a great way for us to be seen is through
except
someone like
again
you.
by each other. And what I love is that most of the time it works the way it's supposed to. I've got people behind the scenes for whatever reason that send me highly political things from the deep left and from the deep right. And both of them assume that I'm of the same persuasion. Like they're
Mhm.
like locked in that I must agree with. And that's what it should be. Because how I feel politically is listen, as long as I'm not hurting anybody, as long as your choices aren't causing damage to people, what you do when you pull that curtain is on you, and it never used to matter. I would like to get back to a place where we can do that. But the problem is, each side says, well, we can't do that because the other side isn't disagreeing, they're evil. But when both sides think the other is evil, then there can't be any road to it being better. You have to put that down. They're not evil in most cases. They're just different. And if we focus on the fact that 95% of what we all find important in our lives is the same, then we bring back what we all miss about a time that we don't think exists anymore.
I could not agree with you more. And I think so much of it too is being online chronically. And if most people just went out into their world more and interacted with the people in their world, they would see we're all kind of the same. And you don't know how that person feels or votes. You still are just treating each
Yeah.
other the same.
But we're also we've turned into people who can't invite family to dinner in real time because they voted one way or the other. So that's
Yeah.
not the answer either. The answer,
Absolutely.
social media is not bad. The internet's not bad. It's how we use it. I
Yeah.
use it every day to connect with millions of people, and it's the best thing that I could have ever hoped for. How do we use it? What do we let in? We used to change the channel. Gen X was the remote control. When we wanted to watch something, we changed the channel. It was a force of will.
Yeah.
Today, we're allowing an algorithm to change the channel for us. We're only watching the next video because it's the next one to come up. You need to go and watch. People need to go back to changing the channel. If you love Gina, you need to go to their pages directly and spend time on that page. You need to change the channel and stop letting it be changed for you. That's the first step. We're angry because it's intentional that we're kept angry.
100%. Yeah.
I agree. You just summed it up. I agree 100% because I do think that has a lot to do with it. And especially if you have someone who is having issues or is depressed or is alone, they're so vulnerable to that, and that's
My
where it
wife
really
will
gets
fall down. She's like,
dangerous.
"Did you see what happened to this kid?" And said, "I go, no."
Yeah.
I go, "And do you know why you keep seeing it? Because you keep seeing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Horrible
Yes.
things happen.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah. Stop. Don't. The best is when
Yes.
someone will comment that they don't like something that
Yes,
we said,
Gina
but
does it to people all the time.
You're
Gina's
gonna
favorite thing is stop commenting on things you hate. You're going to keep seeing me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm not
That's great for
changing.
us.
This is me.
Yeah. It's like, thank you for the engagement.
Yeah.
Now you're going to see more of me. Just scroll. Just keep going. So
Yeah.
did you have?
I did have one other
Okay.
question. Well, one comment too. I remember we literally had to change the channel, get up and change it.
Yes, that's what I
Right?
mean.
We had a little
Yes.
slider we had to do at one
I
point.
had pliers. We broke the handle.
Yeah. Oh, I totally. Yeah. Have you ever met one of your heroes?
I've met so many. I mean, they were all. The Chips is going to be a big one.
Yeah.
Because I played Chips as a kid. I was John. My younger brother was Ponch. The closest thing we ever had to helmets growing up on our bikes were the Chips helmets. They were 3 millimeters of plastic that offered no protection, but it was just play helmets.
With a little spike inside that hurt your head. Remember those?
You fell on that; it shattered.
Yeah, totally.
That's going to be a very cool moment, I think. Listen, I got to hang out with Gina when I went to Dallas. And we played like kids. That was a surreal moment. I do a podcast every Monday with two friends that I've never met in person, but we've been doing this now for 2 years, and it just isn't. It's the whole. I love our generation, and I just think we're all friends that haven't met yet.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. What's the name of your podcast?
The ThreeView Mirror.
The ThreeView Mirror. Okay.
So
cool.
basically, it's three hosts talking about 3 topics from 3 decades. And then at the end of the hour, you have to guess what connects those three topics. Is it an actor in common, movie in common? There's something hidden between those 3 topics that the host brought, and the other 2 have to guess it. And the reason we tied it into a rear view mirror, but a 3-view mirror, is when you're driving down the road, you're moving forward but looking back, and that's the concept. We're still moving forward. We're still in 2026. We're just looking back to gain perspective on how we got here.
I love that. That's so creative and original.
You can thank Shell for that one.
Who is it?
I think it was Rochelle. She came up with the concept. I think I came up with a name.
What are the names of your co-hosts?
Rochelle Oblak and Chris Clues. Rochelle's another Gen X era creator.
Yeah.
And Chris is an author that talks about, he's an author and keynote speaker that talks about lessons that corporate America can learn from 80s music, movies, and pop culture.
That's so cool. So how did you guys even come up with
Chris
that?
sent me his book. I read his book, started talking through email. We talked about putting a podcast together. Shell and I had collaborated on a couple of videos in the past, and we just thought the dynamic of a couple guys and a woman would work really well. Just, the 2 of us play it off well, and then Shell is the voice of sanity that comes in the middle.
And you guys, are you live every Monday or you
We
record
do it
every
in
Monday?
front of a virtually live studio audience. We bring up Riverside, I post it over to YouTube, and I allow people to comment while we film live every week.
Yeah, cool.
Wow, that is so cool. And I
Because
know
most of the shows we grew up watching were in front of a studio audience.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we do it live in front of a studio audience, and then they'll comment on the side, and I'll splash it along the bottom of the screen so that they're part of the experience as well. And then whoever's hosting asks the other hosts and the studio audience any idea what the connection is.
What time do you guys
7
go on?
p.m. Eastern time every Monday.
That is so cool. And I know you do, don't you do a Sunday night
I do
Facebook
Sunday
Live?
night, 8 o'clock, Wonderful World of Generation X, which is just a show that I do. And then on Tuesdays at 7, I do a live Gen X era trivia at a bar. And while I'm live, I just turn YouTube on, and I call it our AOL chat room. I've got a group of people now that just come in on their own and chat while I'm doing the trivia. I'm not even engaging through most of it. They just moderate and talk themselves as if they walked into a chat room.
Wow.
And now that group has created what is that thing called? I can never remember. Discord page. So now they've created a Discord page, and they all talk in there. And now one of the couples that met there is actually getting married.
Oh my gosh. Wow. And then did you start the Generation X page on Facebook? I feel like you might have invited
me and Jeff and I started one. Yep.
Yeah, because I think I got the invitation from you, and we're part of that now. So you guys
and that's what's cool about that too is that's allowing other people to join the conversation. It's not just us talking.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. It gives everybody a voice. You want to post? Here's 80,000 people waiting to hear what you have to say.
And when did you guys start that page?
4 months ago, 5 months ago.
It's grown.
Well, and again, I'm inviting through my page with 1 million followers. So
yes, but still. Okay, you have any other questions?
I'm good. I do appreciate a great conversation.
That was easy. Yeah. What part of Florida are you guys in?
Boca Raton.
Okay. Yes, I'll be in Orlando in August, and then West Palm Beach for UltraCon in September.
Okay. Yeah. Let us know the dates. Will you email or text me, or do you have them?
Yeah.
Actually, West Palm's in our neighborhood.
Say it out for anyone listening. When are you in Orlando?
August. Well, hold on.
Okay. Yeah.
You think I would know, huh? So it's Fanboy Expo in Orlando. Amazing guest list, by the way. It's incredible, the people that are going to be there. That one is August 28th through the 30th.
Okay.
And like I said, the people there that I'm going to get a chance to interview just boggles my mind. These things started as Comic-Cons and then evolved to the point that now they're just nostalgia cons.
Yeah.
And they also bring younger people in because they'll do current actors. But like for this one, there's the Hobbit reunion. A bunch of the guys from the Hobbit, Randy Quaid and Beverly D'Angelo from Vacation are going to be there. Highlander movie people are going to be there. Kate Mulgrew is going to be there from Orange is the New Black and Star Trek Voyager. Patrick Warburton, who played Putty on Seinfeld. Delta Burke, Cliff Clavin, John Ratzenberger is going to be there. Todd Bridges, Kate Jackson, Lorenzo Lamas. Yellowstone reunion. Henry Danger reunion. Melrose Place reunion. Warriors reunion. So, and then Chip's cast, of course. So that's really cool.
Amazing. It's so cool. That is so cool.
We've been watching Chips. We haven't watched it in about a month, but we started watching
all the shows on Amazon.
Amazon, Pluto, MeTV.
Yeah.
And let's see. So UltraCon is at the South Florida Expo Center.
Okay. And
that's September 18th through 20th. And the main guest, a little smaller, the main guest there I'll be able to interview are from 90210, Brian Austin Green and Tori Spelling.
No way. Okay.
I wonder if you can still get tickets.
You can.
You can?
Tickets
okay.
Are still available. It's not, like I said, September 18th through the 20th.
And you'll be there for all three
And
of
I'll
those
be
days?
there.
All right. That's like 30 minutes from us.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'll look into that one for sure. I don't know if we can do the Orlando one. Would be cool. We'll have to look to see if we can do. I think we have a guest.
It's so accessible. And like, listen, selfies and autographs and all that, they're expensive. I get it. We're all on a budget. But even when I was paying for them, now I'm behind stage and can ask for a free picture. But when I was a normal plebe, one of the peasants and had to pay, listen, William Shatner, I'll pay $50 for a picture with William Shatner. That was amazing.
Yeah.
So, but you can go to all of the panels, which now I get to sit on for free and listen to them talk and be within spitting distance of these people that we only watched on a 22-inch Magnavox as a kid.
Yeah. What an amazing experience.
It's
Wow.
just cool.
I'm
And as
stoked
I
you're gonna
said,
be
for the
telling us about it.
most part, they won't let you down. For the most part, these are very cool people.
How many do you say you do a year?
It's ongoing. I mean, I really just started moderating this year, so I'm going to be doing 4 this year. I'm in talks with a few others to start doing more. I want to keep doing more. Number 1, it allows me to make great content.
Mhm.
Number 2, it puts me in cities where I'm close to followers, so I get to meet the friends that I haven't met yet. And then number 3, I get to meet the icons that I grew up watching while they're still here, because we're losing some every single day. And that's the nature of us growing up, that the generation that came before us that we looked up to are passing on.
Well, and I do
We take their
appreciate
place.
you acknowledge that on your page every time we lose someone, and I do appreciate that because there's times I wouldn't have known if you hadn't have put that up
It's
there.
important. And sometimes I'll have people say, well, they're boomers. I'm like, well, yeah, boomers are who we watched when we were kids.
Yeah.
By definition, you would watch somebody older than you. That's how they get on TV.
It's also the musicians we listen to. People don't realize that. So I mean,
but we do it both ways. We have a special connection to our peer group, the Debbie Gibsons, and so that's one connection. The other is, who was I idolizing as a kid? I had a crush on Cheryl Ladd as a kid, inappropriately enough, but that's the way it was. You were 8 crushing on a 30-year-old. So
absolutely. I mean, Farrah Fawcett.
We were announcing her poster.
That was the poster, right,
Hell
guys? I mean, come on. Although I
love
think
Cheryl Ladd.
you liked Jacqueline Smith, though. I think
I was a Jacqueline. I was a Farrah. But now, the older I got, the more I appreciated brunettes in my life. So blondes were the shiny object from when I was young. But as I matured, I started to really appreciate the brunettes in the world.
I like the way you summed that up. I like that.
I can totally agree.
No offense to the blondes in the world at all.
How does your wife handle all this?
She looked up one day my name on Google and saw that how they always say people also search for?
Yes.
So when you search my name or GenXJono and then go down in Google, it'll say people also search for John Kotrides' wife. She lost 3 days of sleep over that.
That's just part of the game.
She doesn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, she's like, leave me out of it.
Leave me out of it. Never done a video, couple pictures, but that's it.
That's hilarious.
Now, are you going on the GenX cruise?
No, not my thing.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to talk him into it, but he's like, the cruises aren't his thing either.
Not my thing. It's a little rich for my blood too. I'm still in that space in my life where we don't take vacations for ourselves yet. It'll come.
Right.
But to spend money on me or my wife and me, and I know some people do it differently, but for now, at least, with a 14-year-old and a 22-year-old, the small amount of time and money we have available to do something is going to benefit all 4 of us, not 1 or 2 of us.
Right. No, that makes sense. Okay, are you done?
I just think that's a special perspective. Kudos to you. You've got the whole family. You've got your priorities right.
We work so hard for it, dude.
Oh, I know, but and we all do, and it's I just find that remarkable. You acknowledge it. You acknowledge how blessed you are, how fortunate you are. You've worked your ass off. I guarantee you that. I know that. Yeah. But I just think it's cool, your perspective.
And the journey that you went on, that you and your wife went on to get your second daughter. I mean, there's something to be said for that. And so
we're so lucky. Like I said, we never for a minute allowed ourselves to dwell in woe is me, because we're so lucky that we had the one without issue. So we got to go home and heal with her in our lap, with her. I mean, I feel bad for her. She didn't ask for any of that crap. But for us, we were lucky. Yeah. But again, our kids are the main story of our lives, whereas we weren't.
Yeah.
I remember having full-blown birthday parties where none of the invitees were mine.
Yeah.
I remember a 6th birthday where it was all my parents' friends, and then the kids of those friends, maybe. but it was
Right.
all about them inviting their friends over.
Yeah.
It just wasn't about us.
Yeah. And our kids are our legacy. You know, no matter how much success we have, how big our names get, whatever is going on in everyone's life, who you leave behind is your
But
legacy.
it's so sad that no contact with parents is exploding right
It
now.
is. It
And
is.
I just find the irony thick that a generation that tried to give voice to their kids, and I don't know, it may be fully warranted, but to see the explosion of it bothers me in the sense that a generation that gave their kids voices, those voices are now being raised against those parents, or even worse, silenced to the parents.
Yeah.
Got to
It
be a
is.
better answer.
It is an epidemic I want to get someone on to talk about it that specializes in. I know there's some creators out there that their platform is all about this, and I'm going to try to I want us to do an episode on it because you're right. It's only amplifying, it's multiplying every year. I feel like it's becoming normalized so much, and that's very concerning.
Well,
And
I
it is
hear it from my
ironic.
kids' friends, that they're trying to end the generational toxicity. And I'm like, dude, you're never going to end it. Just accept it. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's okay. You can set responsible, healthy boundaries without cutting. It's not a malignant tumor. It's a parent.
Yes.
Set a proper boundary. I mean, God, I hate saying it, but if your parents did to you what our parents did to us,
Oh no. They never in a million years could they handle it. No, and I think it's communication and boundaries, but it's definitely something that needs to be discussed and talked about more because the normalization of it's very concerning for
yeah,
sure. So,
we
anything
try.
else?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. My last question is always, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Wherever I end up. No plans, no preconceived notions. With my family, happy, healthy, and hopefully with my wife by my side, still healthy and happy, and my kids healthy and happy. And if I'm doing this at a high level or bartending 80 hours a week to pay the mortgage, as long as my family is here, my friends are here, and we're healthy, it's all good.
I love that answer. That's perfect. Well, John, we can't thank you enough for coming on, spending this time. We know you're a busy guy,
No worries. I
and
enjoyed it a great deal.
I'm glad. I know your fans are going to love this long form access to you. And also for any listeners who maybe are just discovering you, this is a great opportunity for them. And for listeners, we will put everywhere you can find John in the show notes. I have to say, I love your shirt. I watched that movie. Probably 50, I'm not kidding, 50 times. I was obsessed with that movie. And I don't think that movie's talked about enough.
One of my favorite shirts. Zoomers love it, but
Really?
the older Gen Z and the younger millennials always mistake it for Saw.
Oh, yes, they
Do
do.
you want to play a game?
Yes,
You're like, dude, I love Saw. I'm like, I'm glad it's not
it.
Saw.
That's not it. Do you know what movie we're talking
No, I
about?
don't.
War Games.
Shall we
right?
play a game
Or yeah, did you watch
on the
with
computer?
Matthew
Oh,
Broderick?
At least 20 times.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what it
So
was
I
saying.
pulled
Tell
I
us
pulled the
game.
image right from the video of the movie and then overlaid it for my merch.
Now I can read it.
That's
I
brilliant.
was going to explode and zoom in, but now I see it now.
Yeah, and
Shall we play a game?
You've worn that in at least a couple of your clips I've seen, and I kept meaning to comment how much I haven't seen anyone do anything related to that movie, and I was
I just did a video on the day after.
Yes,
and
I saw that.
And I mentioned war games even in that because, I mean, obviously, listen, the Cold War, we grew up in the shadow of it.
Yeah.
And people always think it's a boomer thing to dive under a desk. No, we were the end of it.
That was us. And I'm sorry, how weird is it that we all watched the day after? And I know you just did a clip on it and you talked about that.
It was homework. My teacher said we had to watch it. And God bless my parents, the first time in their lives, about an hour and a half into the movie, something clicked and they're like, this might not be the smartest thing we've done, letting me watch it. And they're like, we're going to finish it. Why don't you go to bed? Okay. I had a 13-inch black and white Emerson in my room. I turned it on because I wanted credit. So I watched the rest of it alone and then didn't sleep for a week.
Yeah.
No, it was the weirdest movie. And I remember there's a scene where the priest and a woman kiss. And I remember saying to my mom,
Are you sure you're not thinking of the Thornbirds?
No, it was like because my mom's like, well,
Everyone
everyone's
dies.
dead, and they're the only human contact. But still, I'm like, why are they making out? Like, I don't understand. Why are we? But I get it kind of now, but still, it's like, why were we all watching this freaking
Because that's
crazy
what was
movie?
on. And if we didn't watch it, then we were in our rooms and there was nothing to do there.
I know,
Is
but
that the one with like Patrick Swayze, or they were
no,
No,
that's
you're
Red
thinking,
Dawn.
Red
I
Dawn?
also
Red
referenced
Dawn.
that. That's
Red Dawn.
Red Dawn.
That
Yeah,
was sort of damaging too.
yeah, but not
The,
in the same
the
way.
day after was this huge hyped ABC mini movie event where
Yes,
they showed what would happen, and they had like real people and had scientists if the worst thing happened. And it shows the mushroom cloud in Kansas and people being vaporized,
yes,
nuclear winter, radiation poisoning. And along the bottom, they're like, this is a fictitious representation because they didn't want people jumping out of
Yeah.
buildings thinking they had just watched a news report that the Russians nuked us.
it was almost one of the first movies where it was made where you could think this is real, like this is news footage in a
So parts of
way,
it
in a weird
were
way.
parts of it were like, okay, it's a movie. But
Right.
then they'd have the scene where they're showing the reporters, and during those scenes, they ran the disclaimer because if
Yeah.
you walked in at the wrong time, you're
Yes.
like, we're breaking into your television coverage to announce that the Soviet Union has just launched 4 missiles towards the United States. And
Yes.
that portion of it, they had to put the disclaimer because they could still remember War of the Worlds radio broadcast from 30 years earlier, where people jumped out of the windows thinking that we were being attacked by Martians.
Right. And it was happening literally during our childhood where we were being taught that this could actually happen. And if it does,
I remember as a kid crying more nights, a lot. I remember being afraid that we were going to die. And listen, kids have their challenges today. I get it.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not an idiot. I said I dropped my daughter off at school. As a parent's brain, you think about the worst that can happen. But what kids don't understand is we didn't imagine our classroom being taken out. We truly believed the world would have been, not a classroom, not a school. We're talking all of civilization gone tomorrow.
Yes.
And
then
we thought that was a possibility.
and we were told, but get under your desk because you might
Yeah.
be okay. Yeah.
I was in Birmingham a few years ago with my older son and a friend of his, and we're walking along, and there was a nuclear, what was it, like the
Fallout shelter
below. So I stopped and took a picture, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "This is something from our childhood."
They have no concept.
They had no concept.
No concept at all. So
Well,
But
and
they worried about
so
school
now our
shooting.
parents, if you had parents that grew up in the 50s and 60s, they had fallouts, but some of them had built bomb shelters
Yeah.
because they grew up during that era of it.
Yeah.
yeah, no, that whole thing. I'm so glad you did a clip of it, short on that, because I think you're the only one I've seen that's even talked about that movie. And that was one of those moments where I'm like, I'm not the only one, because I still remember thinking this is weird. This is
And then
not
you read the
normal.
comments and like, oh, I watched it in school. My teacher made us watch this in school. I'm like, your teacher's fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
and then that brings us to Challenger. We all
Yeah.
watched that in school, right? And then
Which one's that? Oh,
the
God,
explosion.
that's terrible. Yeah.
And then we just went to the next period. Like no one discussed what
Yeah.
happened.
I
in
was
that
taking
moment.
PSATs my sophomore year of high school. And you know how those are heavily regulated, proctored exams. A
Yes.
teacher started breaking down, so they cut into the test, which they never do. And they're like, all right, we're just going to let you know what happened. Obviously, you know something's going on. They told us, and then we went back to finish the PSATs.
Mhm.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah.
Hope this didn't affect your score.
They told you to alleviate themselves. There was no
And
benefit.
yeah, teachers would leave the room crying, and yet we're still like, all right, an animal is to a dog.
Yeah.
Hope that didn't hurt your score. No, I was in like, I don't know, not geography class, whatever they called it back then. And then they wheeled in the
Oh,
TV.
see, I didn't have to watch it, thankfully, because we were testing.
We watched it, and then I'm looking around like, I don't know, was that supposed to happen? And then some kid laughed because he was uncomfortable. It wasn't that he thought it was funny. We're young in middle school. And the teacher freaked out on him and yelled at him and said, people just died. And then we were like, oh my God, people just died. We didn't know people just died. And then they wheeled it out and the bell rang and we went to our next period. That's my whole experience with that.
So
It's
the
crazy.
laughing because we didn't know people had died thing loses its empathetic reach when you realize we're also the kids that went to school the next day asking, what does NASA stand for? How many astronauts can you fit in a Volkswagen Bug? What color were Christy McAuliffe's eyes? How do you know Christy McAuliffe had dandruff?
Yeah.
We had jokes pegged the very next day.
It's true.
That's
It's
so
true.
true.
But that's coping mechanism.
Coping. When you're forced to go to math after seeing it, your brain has to do something.
So this is what you get.
Yep.
But again, we could talk about all this stuff forever. But again, thank you, John, for joining us. We loved having you.
I appreciate you guys taking the time. I apologize I was a little late. I'm glad we made it work.
You're fine. I'm so glad that we were able to connect. And again, for our listeners and for John's John's fans already know where to find him. But for any listeners that don't, it'll be in the show notes. And John, leave any comments or questions. John will see them. And we always love to hear from you. So please leave us any comments or questions. And again, thank you again, John. And we will see you next time. Bye.